perhaps her greatest mark serving as the chair and later ranking member of the Crime Subcommittee. In this role, she worked in a bipartisan fashion to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act and to protect victims of trafficking, among many other successes. She was also a leader on such issues as sentencing reform, gun safety, police accountability, and racial justice. Sheila engaged in many spirited debates, but she always had the deepest respect for all of her colleagues, even those with whom she vehemently disagreed. She deeply loved the institution of Congress, and particularly the Judiciary Committee, because it gave her a platform to make a meaningful impact on the lives of millions of Americans. If Sheila took up a cause, she could be relentless in her determination to see it through, whether that meant making one extra phone call, going to one more meeting, offering one more amendment, or making one more speech. She would not rest until she thought she had done everything she could to fight for the issues she cared about. Through it all, she stayed true to her values and always had the people of Houston close to her heart. We're all better for having known her. The American people are better for having had her in their corner all these years. I will deeply miss my friend and colleague. May her memory be a blessing. I yield back.
I want to thank the ranking member, all said. Now, Chairman recognizes himself for an opening statement. July 13th was a terrible day for America. We all agree spirited debate, fighting for what you believe in, are part of what makes this country the greatest nation in the world. But the First Amendment and robust political debate are not consistent in any way with violence. What happened in Butler, Pennsylvania was a tragedy that took the life of a good man, Corey Compertor, leaving a wife without a husband and two daughters without a father.
Because that's the way you hear it.
Others were injured, and of course, former President Trump, by the grace of God, survived the assassination attempt. There are a lot of unanswered questions about the security failures that day, questions about decisions made before the rally, questions about actions during the rally, and questions about statements made after the event concluded. Prior to the rally, why was the president's security detail denied requests for extra resources? Why weren't all the buildings secured? There were a finite number of buildings that needed to be secured. Why wasn't that done? Why was the president allowed to walk out on the stage when there was a suspicious person on the property? During the rally, what exactly happened between 6:09 and 6:14, those critical 5 minutes? We know from briefings from the director and the deputy director of the FBI and other information we've gathered that at 6:09, the shooter was identified on the roof. At 6:10, the counter sniper was notified. Counter sniper teams were notified about the shooter. 6:11, the shooter fired several shots, injuring and killing one person, injuring others. At 6:12, the counter sniper took down the shooter, and at 6:14, President Trump was escorted off the stage by Secret Service agents. We need to know what happened play by play, moment by moment, second by second, the communication that took place, again, during that critical 5 minutes. And then finally, after the rally, why did both the Secret Service and Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, lie to the American people? July 14th, the day after the attack, Secret Service spokesman, Anthony.
Okay, pausing it real quick. This is live. Yes, they are questioning someone in particular. They're going to be questioning today the director of the FBI. Because remember, whenever that lady who I said was going to resign, and the next day she resigned, cheeked all. Well, she kept saying, you have to ask the FBI, you have to ask the FBI. So that's today, which I didn't realize it was today. That's why I'm like literally still like getting dressed and getting ready. I wasn't really prepared for this. I had a whole nother day of things planned. But I think this is important for the people and history. So yes, they are going to be questioning the head of the FBI, and that's who's doing this investigation.
Giuliani said this, quote, "The assertion that a member of the former president's security team requested additional security resources that the U.S. Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security rebuffed is absolutely false." The next day, Secretary Mayorkas said, "That is an unequivocally false assertion. We had not received any requests for additional security measures that were rebuffed." But 5 days later, top officials repeatedly rejected requests from Donald Trump's security detail for more personnel. And on the 21st of July, the New York Times, confirming what the Washington Post reported, said, quote, "Mr. Giuliani acknowledged that the Secret Service had turned down requests for for additional federal security assets for Mr. Trump's.
So this is just Jim Jordan's opening statement, and the opening statement seems to be so far just concerned with the fact that the head of the Secret Service, Cheadle, had lied about turning down additional security for Trump specifically.
Degree change. Why did they initially lie to us in the days after the attack in Pennsylvania? Finally, we hope to learn more today from Director Wray about the shooter, his use of the drone, the explosives that were in his car, how he got on the roof, and a host of other questions. It is our hope that Director Wray's testimony can begin to give answers to the American people about all of these questions and concerns. So, Director, we appreciate you being here, and we trust that you're going to be as transparent with the committee and the country as you possibly can. And I'm sure you understand that a significant portion of the country has a healthy skepticism regarding the FBI's ability to conduct a fair, honest, open, and transparent investigation. And that skepticism is based on what they've witnessed over the past several years.
Yeah.
American people have seen a Biden-Harris Justice Department that can't tell us who planted the pipe bombs on January 6th, that can't tell us who leaked the Dobbs opinion, and that can't.
2 weeks ago, our country witnessed a shocking assassination attempt on a presidential candidate. Now, I disagree with Donald Trump in almost every policy area imaginable. I am frequently shocked and outraged at the plans he has for our country and the words that come out of his mouth. I have dedicated much of the last 8 years to fighting his agenda. But regardless of my strong feelings about Donald Trump's behavior, I unequivocally and unabashedly condemn with every fiber of my being the attempt against his life. This was not just an attack on a man, but an attack on our democracy. Political violence erodes the very foundations of our nation. The concepts of freedom of speech, of peaceful transitions of power, of a democratic government at its core, these cannot exist if political violence is allowed to fester and to go unchecked. And if you think that this one assassin's bullet was a bolt out of the blue, and not part of a wave of violence that has threatened this nation for years, then you have missed the point of what my Democratic colleagues and I have been imploring you to hear for some time. Election workers, many of them working for free, face near constant threats of violence. In one recent instance, an Indiana man pleaded guilty to threatening to kill an election worker who said that there were no irregularities in a recent election. That man said, quote, 10 million plus patriots will surround you when you least expect it and will, expletive, kill you, close quote. That is political violence.
It is, but what's that have to do with anything? I mean, we're not talking about that.
In another instance, Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi's husband was bludgeoned over the head with a hammer by an intruder in his home who had been there to capture Ms. Pelosi, interrogate her, and possibly, quote, break her kneecaps because of her liberal views.
Okay, that's not cool either. I don't think anybody over here is going to be saying, oh, yeah, they should have did that.
It's political violence, as well as many others, including videos online of individuals holding guns making assassination threats. That is political violence. The plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer and overthrow parts of the state government. That is political violence. The brutal, deadly attack 3 years ago against...
Did y'all see there was a whole mob of people broke into one of those buildings yesterday to do a protest? The word insurrection was trending yesterday.
Very building, with rioters breaking through police barriers to run through these halls chanting, kill Nancy, and hang Mike Pence, and even hanging a noose outside the building. These rioters battering Capitol Police officers and forcing members of Congress and their staffs to go into hiding.
Now, I'm with him and all that, and I'm going to say I have to agree with him. Nobody should have to go into hiding at their job. But if he don't mention what happened yesterday, then it is still politically motivated what he's deciding to speak about. If he's not going to talk about what happened yesterday, then it's cheap. Then it's just hypocritical, in my opinion. Thank you, Jennifer, for the super chat.
Squatted in spaces under desks or in closets. That is political violence. This assassination attempt, as horrific as it is, should surprise no one. And you would think a political party that almost lost their presidential candidate through an act of political violence would have something to say about the way their leaders keep talking about the next election. Donald Trump has warned there will be a, quote, bloodbath if he loses.
Okay, but that if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, baby boy. Because are you going to talk about putting him in the bullseye? I'm just asking. If you're going to talk about the bloodbath, which is a turn of phrase, a figure of speech, you must talk about the bullseye, or else you're a hypocrite. I can't stand this fucking guy, actually. Let me see.
More of the same. And I hear nothing from the other side of the aisle in this room about these statements. You support a bloodbath if you don't get the election outcome you want. You justify violence if the left does not agree with you. And what exactly has preoccupied this Republican majority while their allies threaten violence to their political enemies, real and imagined? We have chased down baseless conspiracy theories designed solely to influence the 2024 election in favor of Donald Trump. We have spent millions of dollars, thousands of hours of staff time, and more than 100 transcribed interviews chasing false accusations against President Biden, supporting an impeachment effort that seemed designed to fail, and hunting for a smoking gun that simply does not exist. And instead of admitting that these investigations found no corruption, coercion, or unethical behavior by the Biden administration, Republicans chose to just dig deeper and spend more money. Imagine what could have happened if we had spent these thousands of hours of staff time and those millions of taxpayer dollars addressing even one aspect of the political violence that now threatens our country. Perhaps had this Republican majority lifted a finger to help a nation that is a war, the assassin of Butler would not have had such easy access to the weapon he used to fire on that crowd. Director Wray, you're a...
What about the transmitter? What about the rangefinder? I mean, we're going to outlaw all that stuff too. I need to know. We're going to outlaw the ladder. We're going to outlaw roofs. What else are we going to outlaw? You old coot.
It protects against domestic terrorists and violent extremists who have been a growing threat in recent years and have carried out horrific mass shootings and deadly events around the country. And so much more. I apologize to you, Director, that instead of supporting you in these missions in the 118th Congress, some of my colleagues have instead hindered your work, maligned your agents.
Oh my God. Can you just get on with the damn show? I'm not here to... Oh. You know what really grinds my gears? Ooh, y'all got me before the Adderall kicked in. You know what really grinds my mother gears? When we vote for people like this, you know, the constituency of Nadler, and they have the bold-faced, unmitigated gall to show up to their job with another country's flag on their lapel, I think it should be considered treason. Who the fuck do you work for? And I'm talking about any other flag. Yes, I'm talking about that rainbow one. I'm talking about that UKRAINE. I'm talking about that one. Who do you fucking work for, sir? Who do you work for? Why do you have it right there, even closer to your heart, the flag of another country? As the head of the FBI oversight committee or whatever in the hell, it's very disturbing. It's disturbing to me. It's disturbing to me. Who do you work for? This ain't in his own personal time. This is as the head of the oversight committee. It's giving, who do I work for? Thank God. I don't even like, y'all know I can't stand Jim Jordan, but he's better than that insufferable old coot.
You win. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of you?
I just realized why they tell you to unbutton your suit top when you stand up. It just all clicked.
Information and beliefs, so help you God. Let the record affirm. Let the record reflect that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Please be seated. We have votes coming in about 10 minutes, but we definitely want to get through your opening statement as far as we can. And this is going to be an interesting day on Capitol Hill with the Prime Minister of Israel here as well. So, Director Wray, you're recognized for your opening statement.
Who gives a shit about that guy? Can he go back to where he came from?
Ranking Member Nadler, members of the committee, I want to begin by offering my condolences on the passing of Representative Jackson Lee, who served the people of Texas in this body and on this committee for so long.
I don't know why. I have a feeling this guy's going to give us a better performance than Cheadle. I think this guy's like, I don't think he slept his way to the top. I think he's got this job by being a creepy little, slimy little snaky snake.
Thank you, Paul, for your support of our efforts to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution. I am proud to be here.
You ever look at the FBI director and think, oh, I know they got a file on me.
today.
Not because I did something wrong, because I'm on their ass.
The 38,000 special agents, intelligence analysts, and professional staff who make up the FBI. Men and women who every day work relentlessly to counter the most complex threat environment I've seen in my tenure as FBI director, maybe in my entire career in law enforcement. Before I go any further, I also want to acknowledge and offer my deepest condolences to the victims of the horrific assassination attempt in Butler County. To the friends and family of Corey
Who cares? I mean, not who cares, but
especially a despicable account of this magnitude. And I want to assure you and the American people that the men and women of the FBI will continue to work tirelessly to get to the bottom of what happened. We are bringing all the resources of the FBI to bear, both criminal and national security. Now, there's a whole lot of work underway and still a lot of work to do. And our understanding of what happened and why will continue to evolve. But we're going to leave.
so just for, context or whatever, the buck quote stops, the quote buck stops with the Secret Service. Like this was their F up. Yes, there's plenty pointing the fingers to go around. There was a ladder there. There was a this, there was a that, there was a bunch of stuff. But really, this is the failure of the Secret Service. And it should have never happened because they should have stopped it. And I think they received, what do they receive? Like $1.6 billion or some $1.6 billion. What's their budget every year? It's something crazy. And the FBI is really not, strictly speaking, for this specific incident right now, as far as we know from facts. They're not really under the gun on this. They are the ones who are supposed to be the daddy coming in. This is supposed to be daddy coming in and telling Congress and telling the House and telling everybody what happened. So really, this guy's not like in trouble. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm putting it like in loose terms so that we can not get too far behind. But really, I mean, this guy's not as much on the hot seat as Kimberly Cheadle was. Does that make sense?
Stone unturned. The shooter made
What about a black
The
stone?
FBI's investigation is very much ongoing. To that point, I also want to acknowledge that I recognize both the congressional and the public interest in this case and the importance of this investigation to the American people. And I understand there are a lot of open questions.
Yep.
So while the investigation is very much ongoing and our assessments of the shooter and his actions continue to evolve, my hope here today is to do my best to provide you with all the information I can, given where we are at this point. I have been saying for some time now that we are living in an elevated threat environment. And tragically, the Butler County assassination attempt is another example, a particularly heinous and very public one, of what I've been talking about. But it also reinforces our need at the FBI and our ongoing commitment to stay focused on the threats, on the mission, and on the people we do the work with and the people we do the work for. Every day, all across this country and indeed around the world, the men and women of the FBI are doing just that, working around the clock to counter the threats we face. Just in the last year, for example, in California, the FBI and our understand the threat and identify additional individuals of concern. Now, the physical security of the border is, of course, not in the FBI's lane, but as the threat has escalated, we're working with our partners in law enforcement and the intelligence community to find and stop foreign terrorists who would harm Americans.
Now we're talking about the border. Again, important to talk about. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about an assassination attempt, Director Wray. Let's get to it.
Our interests. As concerning as the known or suspected terrorists encountered at the border are, perhaps even more concerning, are those we do not yet know about because they provided fake documents or because we didn't have information connecting them to terrorism at the time they arrived in the
Why are we talking about that? This man was born in here.
Getting ahead of today's threats demands that we work together. For the FBI, that means doubling down on our partnerships.
I don't think this 20-year-old person had to pass any border. I think maybe Did he even have to pass a county line?
Identify those who slipped through the cracks. We're targeting the worst of the worst responsible for the violence that still plagues far too many communities. There are Safe Streets task forces.
What's he talking
We're
about?
taking the fight to the cartels responsible for trafficking the dangerous drugs like fentanyl, pouring into our country and claiming countless American lives. Staying ahead of the threat also means continuing to disrupt the cyber criminals, ravaging businesses, large and small, and confronting nation states like our brothers and sisters.
Okay, so this guy's just gonna blow hot smoke. So I guess y'all would rather hear me talk than this guy. Yeah, was he born? Yeah, he was born in here. Did y'all see? Go look it up. Did y'all see Joe Biden's daughter? Somebody had got her diary, and in her diary journal, and she's admitted that it's hers. It's not a conspiracy theory or anything like that. Like, she said that it is her diary, but somebody got hold of it, and just go look into it. Just go look into what Joe Biden's daughter said about Joe Biden doing with/to her when she was 5 years old or so.
Federal, state, if I may, as we approach this week's anniversary, I would just like to say to all those who are part of the FBI family, from our current employees to our formers and to our partners.
They got an FBI family, y'all. Did y'all know? Everybody that's in a cult is in a family. Did y'all know?
Law enforcement and the intelligence community, thank you. Thank you for dedicating your lives to this country and to its people. It is both humbling and an honor to serve alongside you, and I look forward to the work we're going to continue to do together. And with that, thank you again for having me, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Director Wray. Excuse me. We'll now proceed under the 5-minute rule. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Wray, I'm way down here, and I appreciate the chairman giving me this because I've got to leave. But let me ask this question. Why doesn't the FBI disclose to the American people all of the investigative detail and evidence that you are gathering as it is gathered?
Well, we have tried to be transparent with both Congress and the American people as we're going along in the investigation. Frankly, unusually so for an ongoing investigation, given the sheer nature of it.
Well, because usually people are so damn distracted that they're not really banging down your door like they are now. So let's not act like this is some kind of like moral decision on your part. It is a public pressure, and thank you, we the people, for this pressure.
We have provided a lot of information. I expect to continue to provide information.
He doesn't answer the question though.
Information here today in response to your questions and your colleagues. But part of the issue is that, as like in any investigation, as we proceed, facts evolve. Our understanding of what somebody said turns out to have more context that we didn't have before. We have additional leads out there. So part of our goal is not just to respect the ongoing investigation process, but also to make sure that we don't prematurely provide information that then 2 days later turns out to be different than what we told people, because that's very much, kind of a natural part of any investigation.
That seems fair. That seems fine.
Did Crooks fire 8 shots?
We have recovered 8 cartridges on the roof.
Why was Crooks allowed to get off 8 shots?
Well, they don't know if
That,
he.
I think, is something we're still digging into. Again, maybe this is a good place for me to make clear the different investigations that are going on. So, because
Somebody who knows more about watches than me, let me know. That's a Rolex, huh?
yeah, I understand.
FBI director working for us got a Rolex, or is that Seiko? Somebody who knows more. I know there got to be some men in here that knows about. That's a Rolex, right? With the presidential band, stainless steel.
Given that I've only got 3 minutes left, and I know other members, I'm really interested because I appreciate your invitation. You said you're prepared to disclose things as questions are asked. So I don't want to waste time. I just want to get to the questions that might, and as many members as can, ask questions that you'll answer. I actually think I'd be glad for you to go on soliloquy, frankly, and tell us what you know. I think the American people want to know.
We want to know.
Was President Trump not kept off the stage?
That's a question.
We don't know the answer to that, but I want to be clear, and this is important because I think it goes to questions that I can and cannot answer. Our investigation, the FBI's mandate, is focused on the shooter and all things related to his attack. Now, obviously,
What?
I understand very much the
Right.
intense interest and focus.
Who's investigating the Secret Service if the FBI is not? This man just said our focus is on the shooter. I've been being told for almost 2 weeks by the news and the media that the FBI is investigating the Secret Service response. Oh, this is not what I thought.
On the Secret Service's performance, actions, decision-making, etc., there are 2 separate after-action reviews.
Okay.
The DHS Inspector General and the outside independent panel that convened that are focused on that. Now, our
Everybody
investigation
understands
will
it. Everybody
obviously
understands that,
overlap
Director,
with
right?
that.
Here's the problem. We're out 13 days, and you say we've been disclosing. You know, we had the director, or the colonel from the Pennsylvania State Police in front of Homeland yesterday. He was quite candid. He disclosed to us that Butler Emergency Services Unit personnel were posted into the windows on the second floor of the AGR building, that they left there to go pursue the person that they spotted, Crooks, that they texted a photo of Crooks to the PSP representative in the command center. That information was relayed to the United States Secret Service. They asked that it be texted to someone else. That was many minutes before President Trump took the stand. What we don't know is why were they not keeping him off the stand? And to the extent, you know, I know we always hear there's a criminal investigation, you got to wait for that to develop. But do you have any reason to, do you have any other target of your criminal investigation other than Crooks, who's dead?
We are investigating the shooter both to determine his motive and his preparations and activities before the shooting, but also to make sure whether or not there are any co-conspirators, accomplices.
At this point, have you developed any evidence to so suggest that there are any accomplices or cooperators or assisters?
Not at this time, but again, the investigation's ongoing.
So here's the thing. While we wait, maybe for months, and I hate to say this, I'm not trying to take a pot shot, but the country went for years with the understanding that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, as all affected former intel officials. And the whole time the FBI had the laptop and then let that happen in public until finally offering testimony in the case. To the degree we wait to hear as a country and as a Congress what has happened in this event, because the FBI is conducting an investigation, it provides quarter for the U.S. Secret Service not perhaps to reckon with the problems that are obvious to everyone. So let's get a couple in while I've got 13 more seconds. One more question, perhaps. Senator Grassley says that the records of the day show that there was a counter unmanned aerial surveillance operator on site. Was there? And why did that person not prevent Crooks from being able to use a drone?
So again, questions about the Secret Service's performance are better directed to those other reviews. What I can tell you when it comes to drones is that Crooks himself had a drone, and I'm prepared to answer questions.
Civil war, with an Ohio State senator saying that if Republicans lose the election, quote, it's going to take a civil war to save.
Oh, we got a divided interest up here, back up here again with his 2 flags. I don't know what country he works for. I don't know whose people he works for. It's very unclear to me because he's putting the flag of another country closer to his heart than our own very own flag. This man, if you're in his constituency, you need to write to him and you need to let him know what you think about. You don't know who's he serving, who's his boss, because it don't look like it's just the American people.
Right way and a wrong way under the First Amendment to express your views, no matter how passionate or even angry you are. And violence and threats of violence is not the right way. And we don't care what.
At least this shill had the good sense to just put the 1.
You're upset about or who you're upset with. When, from the FBI's perspective, when it turns to violence and threats of violence, that's when we have to draw the line. That's when we get engaged. And there is an alarming phenomenon that we've seen over the last several years of that kind of passion and heated rhetoric turning into actual violence and threats of violence. We've seen it against public officials of all sorts. We've seen it against law enforcement. The number of officers shot and killed in the line of duty in this country is frankly, outrageous and alarming. And I know that because every time an officer is shot and killed anywhere in this country, since the day I started as FBI director, I personally call the chief or the sheriff to express my condolences and to talk to them about the victim's family. And the number of those shootings that are ambush related, meaning somebody is targeting law enforcement because they're law enforcement, is particularly alarming. I have made around 400 of those phone calls. It's almost every 5 days that a law enforcement officer is killed in the line of duty. And that is an example of the kind of ways in which passions and heated rhetoric can bubble over into violence.
Thank you. Members of Congress, their families, and their staffs have witnessed an alarming rise in threats against them. I appreciate the work your agency has done to investigate
Again, if he ain't gonna talk about what happened yesterday, then I don't want to hear it.
and address these threats, but I'm concerned that we do not seem to be stemming the tide. What is the FBI doing to ensure that members of Congress, their families, and their staffs are safe?
So we have a very close relationship with the Capitol Police. And we have members of the Capitol Police, for example, who are on some of our task forces. We share intelligence information about things that we're seeing, trends that we're seeing with Capitol Police and others in law enforcement. Obviously, if we have specific information about an effort to target a member of Congress, then we're getting with Capitol Police in a much more specific way. But those are some of the things that we're doing.
Thank you. Now, Director, your office is leading the investigation to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Republicans in Congress, including members of this committee, have repeatedly called for defunding the FBI. What impact would defunding or even just limiting your funding have on the FBI's ability to conduct this?
Oh, this man wants the FBI to have more money.
So I understand that there are heated views, opinions about us, just like there are about every institution in today's America. But cutting our funding is incredibly short-sighted, and the people it really hurts are state and local law enforcement and the American people we're all sworn to protect.
Thank you. During my remaining time, I want to turn to a different matter. In recent days, Republican members of Congress have attacked presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris as a, quote, DEI candidate, which presumably is code.
We still talking about.
It's not a new theme for them. In May, Chairman.
Why are we talking about DEI to the director of the FBI? Please, this man needs to retire. Does he need a conservatorship? It's looking like he might.
Wrote to you claiming that because of DEI initiatives, the FBI is no longer hiring, quote, the best and brightest candidates to fill the position of special agent. With my remaining time, Director Wray, can you please answer the following questions? Is it true that hiring women and people of color means that FBI is no longer hiring the best and the brightest to serve as law enforcement officers? Is there any evidence that women?
Please. I don't know how the FBI and the Secret Service are related. I really, honestly, I do not know. But I haven't, like, literally, even the sexists. There was one person in the whole chat that said no women should be in the Secret Service. Everybody else, I'm talking MAGAs, I'm talking Qs, I'm talking incel. Everybody in the chat else was like, no, yeah, I mean, it's fine if like a woman wants to be in the Secret Service, but maybe she should be like at least as tall as the person she's supposed to be the human shield for. Maybe. I don't know. Like, please, y'all, last time I checked, I'm a woman. And I obviously don't want to be discriminated against. I don't want to be, considered to have gotten a position, a job, or something because I'm a woman. But like, what does this have to do with the man shooting the man running for president? I can't stand it. Look, he's got Raynaud syndrome. He needs to work on his breathing. Look at his white. You see how his fingers turn white? That's because he's not getting blood circulation there. I only say that because I have it, not because I'm a doctor. But there's stuff you can do for it. Come on.
It's being exploited and analyzed by the FBI lab. The drone was recovered in his vehicle. So at the time of the shooting, the drone was in his vehicle with the controller. In addition, our investigation has uncovered.
You know what time of day he flew it, and if he flew it on the day?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in addition, it appears that around.
I love when the men try to alpha each other. It's so funny. I say this all the time as a joke. This will happen when men don't have to hunt for their food no more.
3:50 p.m., 4 o'clock in that window on the day of the shooting, that the shooter was flying the drone around the area.
2
For
hours.
about 11 minutes. I want to be clear, but when I say the area, not over the stage and that part of the area itself, but I would say about 200 yards, give or take, away from that.
Actually, thank you, Nurse Robin, for this ignorant comment. I am going to hide you from the channel, but I do want to respond. Before I make trashy comments about anybody, I don't actually have to do shit. I don't have to do shit. Because according to the, let me check, very first amendment of the United States Constitution, I get to have comments and opinions on pretty much anything I feel like. So if I want to comment on these crusted, busted old coots, I will do so. If you don't like how I'm doing it over here, you are free to go and make your own video, and maybe people will watch it. I doubt it, considering your crusty attitude. But anybody else got anything to say, just let me know.
We think, but we do not know. So again, this is one of these things that's qualified because of our ongoing review, that he was live streaming, viewing the footage from that, again, about 11 minutes and around the 3:50, 4 o'clock p.m. range.
2 hours before, he's flying a drone in the vicinity of the route.
About 200 yards away. Yes.
Okay, that's important information. What about the bombs that we've heard about in the
Yeah.
shooter's car?
I want to know about that.
So again, the FBI lab is exploiting those explosive devices. There were
This man just said the FBI is exploiting those explosive devices. Did he mean to say exploring? If so, I wish he would have corrected himself.
3 devices, 2 in his vehicle and 1 back in his residence.
Are these what you would call, your experts would call, sophisticated operations, or this? I don't know. That's what I've been told by people who have some understanding of this area.
Yeah, I think it's we've seen more sophisticated and less. I would say these are relatively, again, keyword relatively, crude devices themselves, but they did have the ability to be detonated remotely. And so to that point, in addition to the 2 devices that we recovered out of his vehicle, there were receivers for those 2 explosive devices with the devices. And then on the shooter himself, when he was killed by law enforcement, he had a transmitter with him. Now, I do want to add one important point here, is at the moment, it looks to us, again, ongoing review, and I can't say that too many times. At a moment, it looks like, because of the on-off position on the receivers, that if he had tried to detonate those devices from the roof, it would not have worked. But that doesn't mean the explosives weren't dangerous.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get into all these subjects a little bit later as well. Tell us what you can about the encrypted platforms we've heard about.
Yeah.
So
the encrypted platforms doesn't really bother me that much. Isn't that, who don't have a WhatsApp or a Signal or a Discord or a Telegram, whatever?
One of the things that we're drilling into hard with the shooter, in an effort to try to learn more about his state of mind, his motive, his ideology, his context, everything else, is to look at all of his devices, any social media accounts he had, et cetera. And one of the things we've learned in finally getting into his phone, which was also a significant technical challenge from an encryption perspective, but in addition, once we got on the phone, it turned out he was using some encrypted messaging application.
And again, the same question relative to the bombs: was this pretty sophisticated, or is this the kind of the norm you see with folks like similar situation?
On this subject, I would say this has unfortunately now become very commonplace, and it's a real challenge for not just the FBI but state and local law enforcement organizations.
Tell me exactly the scope of does the scope of your investigation include what I call that critical 5 minutes from when the 6:09, when this is based, I think, on the information you've given to Congress, 6:09 when the shooter's identified on the roof, and 6:14 when President Trump is ultimately escorted off, and all that happens, the shots that take place in between there. Do you have access to the communications that were going on at the time in that critical 5 minutes?
So our investigation, when you say scope, our investigation includes that time frame, although focused again on the shooter himself.
I understand.
Now,
Shooter's
as
involved
part
in
of
that. He's obviously involved in that time frame.
Correct. And as part of that, as part of our focus, our investigation of the shooter and the attack, of course, we are interviewing law enforcement from the scene, because those are some of the most significant witnesses, and we're obviously getting access to their materials and that kind of thing. And the Secret
You're
Service
getting
has been
access
fully
to any-
cooperative.
You have access to the communications that exist there.
That exact question, I don't, as I sit here at the moment, I don't know the exact answer to that question, but I know the Secret Service has been cooperative.
I'm not hopeful about this guy's demeanor, y'all. I thought he was going to be able to keep his cool a little better than Cheadle, but he's already getting a little sassy with his Rolex.
The Congress would like access to those communications as well. I mean, not just that 5 minutes, although I think that's the critical time frame. There's lots of communications we'd love to have access as well. I see my time is up, and they have called votes on the floor. I think there are about 6 minutes left in votes, so committee will stand in recess until approximately 10 minutes after votes conclude on the House floor.
I want to show y'all the man's Rolex. Oh, this is it, I think. Oh yeah, they're just I don't know what he's doing. What he said they was doing. I was trying to find the Rolex. Okay, they're in recess for some reason. I think this is the watch that this man has. It's called an Oyster Perpetual. Freedom of movement. See, doesn't that look like it with the blue? Doesn't that look like what he's wearing? Oh, I don't even have it up. Stupid. Here. This thing. That one's green. But look. I think this is like $10,000 watch. Let's configure one. Let's try to build his. I don't know what size. Probably let's go 36. I'm doing this because this is in recess. Let's see. Look like that. Yeah, look. Oh, it's only 6,100. Okay, well, whatever. I guess he's allowed to have that. Network reset. Okay, let's see. I mean, it's very expensive, but I was thinking it was like, 10, 15,000. Zan said I could get it for $50. Okay, let's see. What did Jim Jordan say? We're gonna take a recess for what?
5 minutes, although I think that's the critical 5 minutes. It says to the communication critical time frame. There's lots of communications we'd love to have access as well. I see my time is up, and they have called votes on the floor. I think there are about 6 minutes left in votes, so committee will stand in recess until approximately 10 minutes after votes conclude on the House floor.
Oh, they must be voting for something today over there somewhere else. Okay. So what? So far, did we learn nothing? No, I didn't learn anything. What's Trillium? I guess I could show y'all some of this stuff. Okay, so we're on a break right now from a recess right now. Who graduated from Yale? I have a friend who went to Yale Law School. He was a transfer from Penn where I went, and then he transferred to Yale, and he told me Vivek Ramaswamy is in the Skull and the Bones secret club over there. Where's my lip gloss? I lost it. So what did I work on yesterday? I got my timeline. Should I pull up my timeline? I can show y'all some stuff I found while we're doing the recess. On this business, maybe the Preston Laboratories, connected to Project Cowboy, Project, what was that other one? Bluebird? No, Manhattan Project. Let me pull it up. Did y'all see the daddy? Y'all saw Matthew Crooks talking in the parking lot? Ooh, Lord. Let me show y'all that. Matthew Crooks's dad, Thomas Crooks' dad, Matthew Crooks, he was spotted at the parking lot yesterday getting some groceries, and let's watch that real quick. Since they want to have a houseboat right now. They want to go do their job real quick. And then the media was like, he speaks out. He speaks
back to that hearing. I do have a related.
don't really speak out, y'all. He really don't, but
story to bring to you. Take a look at this. This is for the first time right now. We are seeing the father of a Trump shooter snapping back at the media. This was a video that was located just yesterday by Fox News Digital. For the first time, Thomas Matthew Crook's father was spotted in public since the 20-year-old gunman opened fire at former President Donald Trump's rally.
so the thing about this dad, I have reason to believe this dad also knows how to wire stuff together because him and Thomas apparently made built gaming PCs together. I'll show you all my evidence for that. But that just did, maybe unrelated, possibly probably unrelated. But if you can wire together a PC, I can imagine you have some good wiring together abilities. That's all I'm going to say, if you know what I mean.
In Butler, Pennsylvania, according to a local business employee and a neighbor who identified him in that picture. So let's play it out for you in full right here on Live Now from Fox.
Why would your son want to kill the president? Back off.
All I'm thinking the whole time is this man is a licensed social worker, and imagine going to the social worker office and this is what's there. I mean, please, y'all.
No comment.
Were there any warning signs, Matthew?
No comment.
How's Mary holding up? No comment.
We'll release a statement when our legal counsel advises us to do so. Until then, we have no comment. We just want to try to take care of ourselves right now. So please, give us our space.
Have the feds released?
All right, the father saying they are not releasing a comment.
Honestly, y'all, like, I know y'all think that he had something to do with this and stuff, or maybe he did, or maybe he should have seen it or whatever. But like, I personally don't want to be held responsible for something my parents do. And I don't really think that at this point they should be held responsible for something I do. I would be freaked out if I'm like just trying to get my Gatorade at the Stop and Shop and I'm being like harangued. But I did find this man's social work license. So let me show y'all that after this.
Right now that they demand a space as well. Fox News Digital previously reported that Crook's parents, Matthew and Mary, called police hours before the shooting saying that he was missing, that they were concerned about his welfare. It is unclear whether they knew that he was in possession of the AR-15.
And it's kind of given like, I'm very biased. I'm not neutral on this. Let me just make sure our hearing isn't, yeah, it's still on recess. Yeah, I was just checking. Okay. I am very biased, but I've seen too many parents that look like that trying to take control over their kids' lives, like Jamie Spears, Phil and April Margera, you know, like stuff like that. Like I've seen too many parents that look like that trying to take control. Linda Omar. So if he's grown up person, he's 20 years old. I mean, I know some of y'all still think that's a kid, but I also think it's dangerous to be like, this kid that shot no, it's not a kid. That's a grown up. That's a grown up that made a grown up decision and paid a grown up price. But I don't know. It does. It is still, let me say this. It's an interesting data point to me. That these people would be calling the cops to report their 20-year-old son missing. I want to know, how long was he missing? Did he maybe not come home the night before? Was he only missing for a couple hours? Is he not allowed to leave his house? Why? I want more information on that. Also, yes, he did bring his dad's, device. If you look well off at Walmart, you'll get jumped in the parking lot. Well, girl, nobody has ever accused me. I fit right in at the Walmart. I mean, I'm open to the fact he could have been a victim of something, but how many victims don't go and shoot somebody? Let's not get carried away. Did he still live with the parents? I think he did. Okay, let me pull up my little, what I was going to show y'all is his license. finished it.
registered to his father. Both Matthew and Mary Crooks are licensed as professional counselors according to the Pennsylvania Department of State Licensing System Verification System there. Let's play this out for you one more time before
Thank for the super sticker, Virginia.
we go back to the hearing.
Matthew, why would your son want to kill the president?
Back off. No comment.
No comment.
Were there any warning signs, Matthew?
No comment.
How's Mary holding up?
No comment.
We'll release a statement when our legal counsel advises us to do so. Until then, we have no comment. We just want to try to take care of ourselves right now. So please, give us our space.
Have the feds released the body to you yet?
All right, this all coming as investigators are trying to piece together how Crooks was able to evade security around the site of Trump's rally on July 13th at the Butler Farm Show property. He climbed onto the roof of an AGR manufacturing building about 150 yards from Trump's podium and fired off several shots before snipers killed him. Let's go back out to the in-demand hearing right now.
So there was another hearing yesterday that we missed, or I missed, I should say. Let me show y'all a license that I was able to find. That isn't it. Don't worry, I got the hearing up. As soon as it comes on, we'll hear it. It's playing. They had to go vote for something. Oh, you know somebody? Send me an email. That's surprisewitness@gmail.com. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, what are we looking at here? This is Matthew Brian Crooks, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. He's a member of the State Board of Social Workers, Marriage and Family Therapists, and Professional Counselors. And the type of license that he has is, quote, professional counselor. You can see here, this is public record. You can see when I accessed it. I accessed it on the 16th, 2 days after the shooting. And he renewed it just in February last year. So I can show y'all also the mother, Mary Elizabeth. I feel there's beef in the encrypted apps. Like, what kind of beef? What you mean? You know, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't really know. Here goes Mary Elizabeth Crooks. Same thing. Professional counselor is her license type, and this is her license number. Again, public record. Now, what I do think is very interesting is how close they received their licenses to one another. See, she got hers February 26th, 2002, and he got like 10 days later. So they seem to have been in the same like class or whatever. I also was able to find a property record for them. I'm not going to pull it up right now because of the terms and services of this particular app. We're on this website, but I will share it with y'all. It is a public record. Y'all can go find it. It's not like I'm gatekeeping it, but I don't want to show the actual address right now, even though it is pretty public and all that. Yeah, I do have the deed there. Let's see. When was it from? It's from 98. So but that adds up. Matthew B. Crook. Oh. Brian. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. Matthew B. Crooks, Mary E. Crooks. So they probably went to school together because they had this deed in 1998. Let me see if I can I can show y'all the top. Let me show y'all the top of it without the address. I mean, I'm sure it is public record. They've shown their house on the news many times. I'm not going to show it here, but I can show y'all the top of the deed just so you can see what I'm referencing. July 14th. So just interesting that all of that happened on July 13th. July 14th, 1998. See, you can see Matthew B. Oh, I put the address up anyway. Girl, I'm going to have to go blur that out. Oh, I was trying not to. Oh, well. And what else? Did you see the interview from the neighbor who asked Thomas if he wanted to get a job walking his dog? And he said, F you and F your dog. No. But what I saw was a neighbor who had said, he was like just quiet and kind of normal. He has a sibling. I think it's a sister. It's been a while since you see me on YouTube. I don't know where you've been. I post all the time. He does have a sister. He has a sister. There's been some mention of it, but not much. Okay, what else did I want to show y'all? My timeline. Ooh, my timeline. Can you look in the pics on the internet showing the... I personally, thank you for the super chat. I've looked at these pictures. I gotta be honest, I'm not like a face analysis expert. You know, there's been some differences in like, you know, ear shapes, things people have been pointing out. And this also has happened with the, with Britney Spears. That's how I got started. If y'all are new here, the way I kind of got started into all of this was I was trying to debunk the Britney Spears is being held against her will conspiracy theory, and come to find out it was the truth. It was not a conspiracy theory. I mean, I guess it was technically, you know, because it was a theory about a conspiracy, but it was a true one. And a lot of people, even to this day, they're trying to get me to compare, like, oh, the gap in the tooth and the ear shape. It's not a road I like to go down, because I'm gonna tell you one thing. I personally look very different at different angles and stuff, and it's like I'm not an expert. I don't know. Now, if it comes, you know, turns out that somehow, some way, Matthew Thomas Crooks is transgender, I don't think that would really, in and of itself, that's nothing. That doesn't mean anything to me. A lot of people are. That doesn't make them killers. You know what I mean? I got some pictures. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. What do you mean you haven't seen me on YouTube? Let me just double check. Our hearing is still in recess. I know they're going to be doing this. They should have just. Jim Jones's childhood, his parents' political entanglement, Satanistic LSD mind control. What? Oh my God. I was looking into the FBI, the CIA declassified files last night on like communicating with extraterrestrials. Oh man, they put anything in those declassified files, I swear. Where's my little notes here? Let me bring it up. I'm just gonna scroll through what I have so far. So this guy, I had to see how far back my timeline goes. Girl, I am in it. I don't, seriously. No, it's not about Jim Jordan. Oh, I know that. I know it's a very real thing. I've been reading the CIA files. They told me. So what we have here, I'm just going to go through this real quick. So this guy right here, his name's Frank Preston. He started, if you just got here, it's because the hearing is on a recess. They had to go vote. So they're in the middle of investigating the assassination attempt, but then they had to go vote somewhere. So we're doing a little recess, and I'm just stalling, basically. But I'm going to show y'all my notes. But this isn't, if you don't get it, you know, this is just a sneak peek. I'm probably going to make a lot of videos about this. No, I know. Oh, I know. I know this, girl. I know this. No, I didn't get the license plate of that motorcycle because it was too far away. Okay. So it's unclear when this man right here started the business, but he started it. It's called Preston Laboratories. And today it's, you know, the name of that business is AGR, American Glass Research. And then it's split into two businesses, American Glass Research and AGR International. It's two businesses, two different businesses. Remember that? But when it started, it was one, and it was started by this man, Frank W. Preston. Now, the website says it started in 1927, but this other chronobiographical sketch said it started in 1926. But then I couldn't find actually any literal paperwork proof of it until 1933. As you can see in this newspaper clipping, then this man with the last name of Gehring, I'm sorry if I do not know if I'm saying that right, but then he joins Gehring. He joins Preston Laboratories team. He has a wife named Jenny Elizabeth, who's the daughter of Carl Lynn. This document also, by the way, y'all, it's about 20, how many pages? 24 pages long so far. Then you just kind of get a little bit of sense about how this guy was. Like, who was this guy that started this business? He sent a check to the city of Butler in 1937 because he thought his taxes were too low. So, like, I don't know, it kind of gives me a sense of, like, I don't know, maybe he was on it. I don't know. It's kind of weird thing to do. The next year, a meteor is said to have blown up, and these two, Preston Laboratories guys go and study the site of the meteor. See, look right here. L.G. Gehring of Preston Laboratories interested in getting data about the meteor. So they're gathering data, which passed over this section 6 p.m. June 24th. Anybody who saw it can contribute important information. I love getting in the newspaper archives, y'all. Frank Preston. Yeah, he also studied the meteorite the next year. Look. McCormick, Gehring, both of Preston Laboratories traveled every back road of the critical areas and made house-to-house calls canvassing for information. This produced some interesting stories, but no fragments. McCormick flew over the area in a small plane. So they're kind of like looking into meteors. Stuff's happening with the war. There's a war production board. Division Industry Advisory Committee announced the following appointments, and then they put people that work at that Preston Laboratories on this like war committee and the industry advisory committee. See the newspaper clipping right now. The Division of Industry Advisory Committee of the War Production Board today announced the following appointments to the newly organized Industry Advisory Committee, Hatchet and Hammer Industry, and then it's like technical subcommittees include this guy Gehring. Again, this isn't really supposed to be for a video. I'm just showing y'all this is how I do my timelines. That's why we do timelines on this channel. Then yeah, they have some employees. Then there's like some kind of connection with the Carnegie Mellon thing, like the Mellon Institute. He was friends and went to school with Carnegie's. Frank Preston. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, yeah. Y'all know Corning, the ones that made everybody's grandma has those Corel bowls. You know, those Corel bowls, the one that everybody's grandma has in every country. It's somehow so ubiquitous. It's like those same little bowls. It's the ones your grandma has. That's made by the Corning company, and they could not have been made without the technology that was created by this glass company called Preston Laboratories, which is now AGR, which is the building the shooter was sitting on top of. It's like everything connecting to everything. Yes, the Totally Peaceful Production Board. Let me just check on our hearing over here. Yep, nope, still not going on. What else we got going on over here? I don't know. Oh, meeting. It's supposed to be meeting. Meeting. Have their little secret meetings. Let's see what else. So then this man Preston, he starts making stuff out of glass, like for the military. And here is a technical report down here, as you can see right here, from 46. Yes. Let me make it a little smaller so it's all together. So it says, quote, samples of the S3 sight with the 3.5-inch aperture, girl, I can't spell, were made for the Bureau of Ordnance by Preston Laboratories. And then it says the Navy reports that these things that Preston made were not satisfactory because it had been impossible to obtain a thick enough plastic that it was clear. So the man was like a glass, still to this day, it's a glass company. Now look at this. This is really interesting. Frank Preston, the guy who started the company that's now kind of like owes $17 million to BlackRock or whatever. They took a loan out from BlackRock like 3 months ago for $17 million, that company. Well, back in 1946, the founder of that company, he was asked to serve as a, quote, official observer at the atomic bomb test at Bikini Atoll as a civilian observer. Here's an article that says that he went with this guy, John T. Ogden of the glass industry. Frank W. Preston of Preston Laboratories, Butler, Pennsylvania, will report observations on the first and second time. So how did this guy get invited to go and be an official civilian observer of an atomic bomb? And he got on a Navy ship. Look, it says they will report their observations first, the fall meeting. Oh, did I not have it? No, I don't have it up. There's another one, let's see if I can click this. Look, see right here? Asked to serve as official observer to the atomic bomb test. Like, how do you get that job? I want to know that job. Oh, I didn't even show y'all it. I didn't pull it up. Well, damn. Hold on. That's what I was looking at right there. We are here to talk about this, but I mean, they just, they taking their sweet time to go vote and all that. But he was born in England, 1896. He didn't even really go to school, although he was very smart. He went to a, preparatory school, but then he got into Oxford. He couldn't afford to go. So he just self-studied and he went and just took the test and he passed. So he got the degree. But not Oxford. This one was London University. Founds Preston Laboratories. And then he's 20 years later, he's the observer on this atomic bomb task. Girl, I don't know. It's very weird to me. But don't worry, we're going to get into some more notes. I did a lot of notes about this Preston Laboratories turns to ARG, because a long history of this company, and it's a long history of government connections. Because one of the things I keep thinking is like, the American Glass Research, it seems like they are some type of private company, right? Like it's not listed on a stock exchange. It's a private company. It seems that the property is technically speaking private property. Now that doesn't mean that the government or especially the Secret Service can't, take a little temporary domain over it to make sure of the safety of the people and all that. But it just seems to me like maybe they, how does the question I keep asking is like, why weren't there Secret Service on the roof? Did this business have to give permission to let these people use the business as a stakeout? It's just things I'm thinking about. So I'm just trying to gather all the information that I can. Okay, let's see and then look how weird this is. He's selling Great Dane puppies. Look, Great Dane puppies, well-bred, AKC registered, golden fawns and brindles, black masks, males and females, inspection invited, Preston Laboratories. So you could buy it's like, look, it's Great Dane puppies, fully pedigreed, make offer. Irish Settler pups. It was like the classifieds for the dog. And he did have a Great Dane, so maybe his Great Dane just got pregnant or something. I mean, I really don't know. But look at this. Preston Laboratories is supposed to be a glass company, a glass manufacturing and testing company, Preston Laboratories. But they got in trouble in 1951 for shipping drugs. So it's Great Danes, drugs, and glass all getting sold out of here. Then you come to find out the man was also a geologist. He was also a founder of the Pennsylvania like he was doing all kind of stuff. It's just kind of weird to try and what was he doing? And look, it says it right here. Up at the top, misbranding of vitamin and caffeine capsules. February 27, 1951, alleged shipment. On or about January 12, 1951, the Preston Laboratories and or about January 26th, February 6th by National Drug Laboratories. What was the product that they got in trouble with the FDA for mislabeling? Vitamin and caffeine capsules, 200 cartons, each containing 28 vials, 2 fiber drums, each containing 104,000 capsules, and 1 fiber drum containing 102.5 thousand capsules at San Francisco, California, in possession of the MAPCO Pharmacal Co., together with a number of vial and carton labels and other pieces of literature. So if they were just shipping out bottles, vials, syringes, that would make sense to me because they're a glass company. But they're sending out the actual vitamins and the actual caffeine capsules. I don't know. Like, results of the investigation, the capsules were shipped in the drums from Chicago to the MAPCO Pharmacal Co., which repacked a number of the capsules into vials. The vials were packed into cartons and were offered for sale with literature called, "Are you suffering from TF? Try MAPCO anti-fatigue caps. TF, tired feeling. Are you suffering from tired feeling? Girl, send me some caffeine." You know, we were crazy in law school. We used to eat chocolate covered espresso beans like as a snack. Explains a lot probably about my neurology. Bowie, we have a problem. Let me make sure my little video isn't playing over here. Nope, it's still going. Uranium glass is pretty neat. I was looking at it on eBay yesterday. Okay, let me pull up my little thing back up again. All right. The capsules were shipped. Okay, so and it said like private formula. Each capsule contains thiamine, HCl, riboflavin, niacinamide, vitamin B12. I mean, does this sound that bad? I don't know what thiamine is, but the other stuff sounds fine. What's wrong with that stuff? But I think it was just like it was mislabeled. The nature of the charge is that it was misbranding. Section 502 of the label capsule and the drums failed to bear adequate directions for use. Oh, that's all I took the picture of. Okay. I don't know. Some other stuff happened. Then they got in trouble again, yet again, with the FDA, yet again. Oh, no, sorry. This is actually, yeah. See, remember I told you he was like a conservationist too? So he would write about these waterfowl and the skyways in the Western Pennsylvania. I wish to acknowledge the help in the field of John McCormick, formerly of the Preston Laboratories, on many of the early observations, and the late Howard Elliott, Butler County, who's occasionally took me, okay, this is going to become important. I just know it. So just take a mark of it down here. I should just make this available to y'all because I think it could help a lot of people that are doing investigations. We should like crowdsource the truth, as they say. I wish to. So he said, look at this. Thank you to Howard H. Elliott, and that's who he's dedicating this waterfowl. The waterfowl is a bird, so he's just writing a bird article. He was obsessed with birds, this man. And I'm completely on the fence about Preston, right? I think it's 50-50 right now for me. Whether the man was like totally in on, he's just a government op, or if he actually was just like this sweet kind of like hyper-focused, interested like man. Like he was brilliant. The man was brilliant. He was obviously a polymath and he could do a lot of things in a lot of areas. So, sometimes they have people like that and then their shit gets infiltrated. So I'm completely on the fence right now still about this guy. Like, was he one of those? Was he one of those? Don't know. But he's writing this bird article and he's thanking this guy named Howard Elliott, who occasionally, took over during my absences. Absences for what? Were you working on the Manhattan Project? Because I do know that you were over there at the Bikini as the civilian observer. I don't know why you were over there. I don't know why you was over there. I don't know what you was doing over there. But what absences is he talking about? That's going to become important. This is what goes on in my mind. Like before something goes into a video, this is what it is. And I have to somehow figure out how to make it. On what was Tesla has stolen patents? Yeah, I don't know. He was walking dogs. No, he did have dogs too. I saw pictures. Yeah, isn't that interesting? What else? So then again, 1952, again, he's talking about the goose beaks, which is another type of bird. And then they just say, like, oh, yeah, also he's a scientist. Oh, girl, I feel like this right here is connected, so I just put it in there. If you know, you know. If you do not, I will tell you one day soon. Preston Laboratories. Yeah, okay. So finally, they file in their articles of incorporation like 30 years after the company starts. I don't understand how that works. Again, years later, he's publishing about the waterfowl again. He was still in 1958 the director. There was a big fire, March 1961. So this is interesting to me because there was a big fire on the premises in 1961, and that's the same year that this man sold his company. The company changed its name from Preston Laboratories to American Glass Research. There's a whole, I think it was a coup. I really do. I really do. That's just my opinion. I don't know. This is all I have to go on at this point. But there was a big fire at that property. Look, here it is right here. The home of the McLaughlins suffered 4,000 damage early yesterday. The fire was started by a faulty furnace connection. The home is on the Preston Laboratory property where this man worked as a janitor. A blaze originating in an open fireplace did $1,000 damage to someone else's home. Okay, so remember that Gary guy? He dies. So that's him right there. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but, Board of American Glass Research in Butler, which we knew. He was named chairman of the board in January 61. Remember I just told y'all that Preston Laboratories, it was sold off, merged with Dimmick Associates to become American Glass Research. He had been, he was like, this guy's like one of the main guys. And he also worked for the government during wartime. Like he worked on one of those special committees, started by Theodore Roosevelt, David Cornell. Okay. 62. Frank Preston sells the company and the name is changed. But again, look, we don't know. Is it 61? Is it 62? Sometimes they get their years a little messed up. Now, this is really interesting. Preston Laboratories, whenever they did this sale, it was really a merger. And it merged with a company called Dimmick Associates. Now, to this very day, the CEO of AGR is named Henry Dimmick. Okay? Blink and you miss it. Blink and you miss it because there's even more information coming here. Let me see if I can just write it. Okay, so let me write it down. Because right now I'm just stalling. Anyway. Girl. So we have 19, we'll just put 26, Preston Preston Labs. Okay. I'm just going to say 1961 sale merger, but it could be 62, could be 59. It's different dates are listed, but I'm just putting it here for a little star by it. Okay. So here's my timeline. 1926, Preston Labs has started. Can y'all see it? And then 1961 sale merger. Who did it merge with? It merged with Dimmick Associates. Okay. See? Dimmick Associates, right? Today, 2024. Oh, they're back. I think I hear them. I heard a throat clear. I'm going to have to finish this later. Okay, let me just do this then. Today, 2024, the CEO, his name is Henry Dimmick.
Committee will come to order. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California for 5 minutes.
Oh, here we go.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Wray, for being here with us today. Before I ask anything, let me just echo the comments made by others, especially the ranking member, decrying the state of political violence in this country. It's completely unacceptable. We have a democratic system that allows for us to disagree, but not to take those disagreements to violence. That's what we have elections for. And I want to also thank you and all of the FBI for the work that you do, and frankly, the unwarranted abuse and criticism that have been directed to you by conspiracy theorists and others. It doesn't make your hard job any easier. And I want you.
Oh, let's just pat this poor man with the Rolex on his back. Poor thing.
Many
Oh,
of us notice that.
he has to deal with the conspiracy theorists. It's so sad. Oh,
Work that you and your team are doing. Let me just ask a couple of quick questions. First, many of us are interested in the motives of the shooter here. When it's an assault on a political figure, you immediately assume there's a political motive, and that may be the case here. We don't know yet.
this stupid bitch. Who is she? Who is this idiot? If somebody aims a rifle at someone in the middle of a political speech and it's a political candidate, it's by definition an assassination attempt, you stupid idiot. Who is she? What idiot is whose grandma? Somebody come get your grandma.
But I was interested in what you're seeing on his phone. The press has reported that he had pictures not only of Mr. Trump, but of Mr. Biden and various other members, political figures. Can you discern, was there, an element of, mainly Republicans, maybe Democrats? Was it all over the board? Can you enlighten us about that?
Well, this is a place where it's particularly important for me to reiterate the caveat that I've included before, because in this instance in particular, we have a lot of legal process out for additional accounts and things like that that the shooter is associated with. So we're hoping to learn more, and we're still exploiting a number of the digital devices.
Right.
I think it's fair to say that we do not yet have a clear picture of his motive, and I think it's important for me to explain, because I understand, of course.
I wrote it down in my diary. What I think happened. I'm just not at liberty to say it yet because I'm gonna start a psychic prediction channel. That's what I'm gonna do. I start a psychic channel. I'm gonna do my psychic visions over there.
That's why everybody wants to know the answers to those questions. Often in an investigation, from interviewing people that the subject was in close contact with, looking at the individual's social media accounts, messages, often things, physical evidence in the person's residence. You might see a manifesto, things like that. We're not seeing that yet, but we are digging in hard because this is one of the central questions for us. What I can say is that the shooter appears to have done a lot of searches of public figures in general, but so far we're seeing kind of news articles and things like that. And so the images that have been reported about, really what we're talking about there are when you do a news search of an article, the image appears in the cache, as opposed to like a search for that specific individual. But again, I really want to be clear that that's a place that we're doing a lot of work right now, and so more to come on that.
Well, I thank you for that clarification. We're interested also in the role.
Who's we? Who's we? I get sick of these people saying we.
Access to weapons when it comes to this terrible crime. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle have suggested that collection should stop. There have been efforts to digitize it, which have been resisted. Can you tell us about how the origin of this gun purchase was discovered? And
while we at it, let's get rid of wasp spray too, while we're at it.
Technology used.
I guess what I can say is we located a number of firearms associated with the shooter and his family. I think it was a total of 14 in the house. The weapon that he used for the attempted assassination was an AR style rifle that was purchased legally, that he, is my understanding, acquired, I think bought actually from his father, who was the one who originally bought it.
You know, this is an interesting question. I don't know what these people's political affiliation is because I'm so far removed. I'm so far removed from this clown show. I mean, I'm in it now, but The last time I really watched any type of hearings was the first Trump impeachment. I think it was like 2019 that was going on. So I don't really watch these people, and if it happens that the ones that I'm more critical of happen to be the Democrats, then that is a true sense of what I really think, because I did not know that this was a Democrat. I mean, I guess I could have guessed after like the second round of her questions, but I didn't know that she was a Democrat. I just literally said, I don't know who this lady is. I don't hate really any of these people. But as somebody who lives here and as somebody who's their boss, who they all work for me, they only derive their power from my consent and your consent. It's interesting they all do kind of say the same thing. And the Republicans do too, but on this particular issue, I think I am happening to side a little bit more with the Republicans, but that is only on this issue. Like sometimes I don't side with them. Sometimes I think they sound the deranged ones. But oh, the hearing is here. No, I mean, I really can't do much else, unfortunately. That's pretty much all I can do. So sorry about the volume. Yeah, we're American. Who cares? But I will say the Democrats are the ones seeming to have a hard time keeping on the point.
The kind of
So it's fair to say, not on a scale of 1 to a million with little nuances, but on a scale of 1 to 10, President Trump's risk was very similar to a current president, very similar to, because he was the presumptive nominee and leading in the polls and so on, that he was a high risk by any standard. Is that correct?
Sure.
I really don't know what you mean by this, but Blair White is from Texas and I'm from Louisiana. So we probably would have a lot of stuff in common just culturally.
There's a reason why he has so much protection around him.
Okay. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of assassinated senator and the nephew of an assassinated president, would you say he was also, as a presidential candidate, at significant risk?
Again, I think any presidential candidate raises some level of risk. It might vary from candidate.
No, but it's clearly a risk. Okay. In a nutshell, the day before this attack, President Trump was documented not to have gotten on multiple occasions from the Secret Service what they asked for. The day after, it looks like they're getting more. The day before, RFK had been denied by the president multiple times, Secret Service protection. The day after, he now has it. So now my question is the actions of a 20-year-old with a lone gunman on a roof sufficient to change the risk assessment in your mind for President Trump and RFK? Or are we just realizing the threat that was always there and being more appropriate in matching it? And I know that's a little vague, but you've been at this for a long time. Hindsight is 20/20. Now that we have hindsight, is it fair to say that giving Robert F. Kennedy Jr. security, upping the security, including drones, overhead support for the president, former president, these are all things that in hindsight should have been done the day before?
Well, let me try to answer your question this way. Of course, as I said, the assessments of the level of security to be provided to individual protected.
No, I understand it's a Secret Service decision.
But what I would say to you is that, and I've been saying for quite some time, including in front of committees of this Congress, that we are in an elevated threat environment, and we have been for some time. And that comes from a variety of quarters. It is quite frankly a dangerous time to be a prominent public official.
In regards to that, the other side has spent a lot of time talking about what people on the right have said. But there was an attempted assassination on a Supreme Court justice. We have had the highest ranking senator on the other side of this body saying that there were actions, that they were accountable. We have had multiple members of Congress in both the House and the Senate berating the character of members of the Supreme Court as a result of their decisions made, both sometimes 6-3, sometimes unanimous, whatever. Are those comments, not any one of them, but are those comments and the generation of that sort of, oh, this guy's bad for democracy, this Supreme Court justice is a threat to democracy, is that the kind of thing that raises the threat level? And would you caution against that?
Well,
Oh, Daddy FBI is going to tell us if we're allowed to say things now, if we're allowed to question if things are good for democracy. Daddy FBI has an opinion. Everybody get your pen out and take your notes.
I do believe that we've seen an increase in threats of violence, which again, that's the FBI's lane, not rhetoric, no matter how despicable or heated it is, but violence and threats of violence. We have seen an uptick in threats towards judges, among other prominent public officials, including, as you say, a case that we helped investigate involving a threat to.
I swear to God, once I started studying history, like on my own, you know, through the newspaper archives and through like stuff like that, it becomes very clear what's going on. And it's not the most highest, most whatever threat, whatever as ever and all that, like they always try to say. This shit been going on since forever.
Supreme Court justice.
An attempt.
An attempt.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. And I think it's a reflection of a broader phenomenon that we are seeing in this country, where people, again, very passionate, I respect that, very angry, I respect that, but there's a right way and a wrong way to express yourself when you're angry.
Boom. The overlords want to tell us there's a right way and a wrong way to express yourself when you're angry. Of course, we shouldn't be doing violence, all right? But
And violence and threats of violence just can't be it. And that's where we fit in. It's not my role as FBI
agreed
director to call out, particular people's rhetoric. There's a place for that, but that's not my role as FBI director. But when it turns to violence and threats of violence, that has to be treated as unacceptable, and that's the way we look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
yeah, but these people, they think just saying, oh, their threat to democracy is violence. Everything's violence. Saying somebody's ugly is violent today. That's a violence to say someone's ugly.
Way, but I can't really get into specifics here.
It's minority's time here, but I just felt that was a question the committee to understand, and it sounds like you've known that for a long time, and that information was conveyed to the Secret Service.
Any information related to threats against the former president, which again, as we've sort of talked about, is happens all too often, is something that we have a whole process we routinely share with Secret Service on a number of levels in a timely way, and to my knowledge, that has consistently been followed.
Gentleman from Georgia is recommended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Director Wray. Director Wray, the FBI is
Look like he got a Rolex too.
independent law enforcement agency under the Department of Justice. Is that correct?
Yes.
And does the FBI director currently report to anyone?
Well, you mean in a chain of command reporting structure kind of thing? Yeah. So the FBI is part of the Justice Department. On the org chart, you would see that the FBI director, and this has been true for decades, reports to the Deputy Attorney General, who reports to the Attorney General. Obviously, reports in a communication sense, I report to any number of people.
As opposed to a micromanagement reporting system.
Correct.
And you would take issue, would you not, with any proposal that would change or alter that chain of command and place you or place a FBI director in the position of reporting directly to the president, would you not?
Where's he going with this?
I don't think that would be a wise reporting structure. I think the structure that we've had for decades now makes sense. I think there's a difference between independence in a sort of organizational structure perspective and independence in terms of the way you do the work. Obviously, the FBI is part of the Justice Department.
Well, reporting directly to the president would eliminate your independence, would it not?
I don't think it would help.
Yeah. And you're familiar with Project 2025, are you not?
I mean, I've seen,
This is a hot button issue. I got to admit to y'all, I'm completely ignorant on the Project 2025. I meant to get into it, but all this took place. So I really don't know and I can't comment on it. I do not know.
news reports about it. I'm not
You're aware that
particularly
it,
familiar with it.
you're aware that it is a game plan for President Trump's first 120 days in office, correct?
I'm really not familiar with the details.
Well,
I've seen
it
reported
is.
about it.
This is how I would be. I would be like, I don't know. I need to read it.
Is, and what he proposes to do is to force the FBI director to appoint to report directly to him. That's what he wants to do
So he wants the FBI. Okay. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe it is.
in the first 120 days. He also wants to eliminate the position of FBI General Counsel. That is also set forth in Project 2025. How would you recommend that?
I think the FBI's Office of General Counsel serves an incredibly important role, including in terms of advising our workforce. We have 38,000 people. The idea of having an organization like ours, an independent law enforcement agency like ours that doesn't have its own general counsel's office doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it would seem like any proposal that would force the director to report to the president
By President Trump. I respect that. I think that's a part of our structure. But independence in terms of how we do our work is what matters to me. And we need to be able to do our work in a way that is free from political interference.
well, you wouldn't be able to do that by reporting everything you do to the president and getting his authority and approval before you take action, correct?
I don't think that would be a wise approach.
And then there's even a proposal to replace many of those 38,000 dedicated civil servants who work for the FBI, replace them with a MAGA group that has pledged its allegiance to Donald Trump. What danger would that bring to the FBI if that were to happen?
Well, again, I haven't read or reviewed this
Well,
thing that you're
assuming
referring to.
what I say is
but
true.
The FBI is made up of 38,000 dedicated career law enforcement professionals. It has no political appointees of any kind unless you count me as a
You don't
nominee.
want that to change either.
I don't think that should change. I
You don't
think
want
that is
a bunch
that is
of MAGA
part of how we do our work.
being the employees of the FBI.
We're coming up on 116 years of the FBI, and that's the way it has been for 116
It would
years.
be crazy to take.
We're not behind. This is, unfortunately, we're up to speed.
The FBI, that's frightening. That's what Project 2025 proposes, and I'm glad to know that you are not with that program, and with that I yield back.
I'm gonna yield back, gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Was the shooter on the FBI's radar in any way prior to the assassination attempt?
We did not have any information about the shooter. He was not in our holdings before the shooting.
No communication in any chat rooms, no CIs or...
Oh my God, this guy.
We've run a thorough search for the subject through all of our holdings, and he was not in them anywhere.
Were there any FBI agents or informants present at the Trump rally in Butler?
Not to my knowledge.
And Mr. Jordan was talking to you about Iran. Were law enforcement resources diverted from the protection of President Trump to John Bolton as a consequence of concern that Mr. Bolton might have been the target of Iranian malign efforts?
That's really a Secret Service decision. I don't.
Oh,
that's really
sorry.
something they would know better. There are a number of individuals. You mentioned one who we've brought a case, a specific criminal case for the Iranians targeting for assassination. But how?
Are you gonna get that answer to us? Whether or not resources were diverted from Trump to Bolton? Is that just going to be part of your review?
I think that's going to be part of the reviews by the inspector general.
The inspector general for DHS, right?
Of DHS, right. and the outside panel.
I think that's an important point because the inspector general for DHS has really fallen out of favor with the administration because he's been pointing out all the problems on the border with Mayorkas and Biden, and we're always kind of worried that they're about to fire him, which would be a really bad idea now that this role that you've identified is so critical. Be a bad idea to fire the IG for DHS during the pendency of this, right, Mr. Director?
I don't think that would be a good idea.
I'm with you on that. So I want to zoom out a little bit. How often do you brief President Biden?
You mean on this
No, just
specific
generally.
case?
No, in your role as FBI director.
I mean, I don't know that I could give you a number.
Is it like weekly, monthly, daily?
It's not at a regular cadence. There have been times when there have been months at a time when I have,
I agree. I think this too. I agree. I do agree.
and then there have been times when several days apart I have.
Oh, just so we're clear, I agree with the comment I just pinned about Gates and Mace and the Free Britney, not with what these lunatics are saying.
Always with other people.
The vice president, is she typically there?
Often has been.
Okay, so when did you notice his decline?
In my interactions, in my role, all my interactions with the current president have been completed.
This is funny. Also, Matt, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but he's like, when did you first notice that Joe Biden can't walk, can't talk, can't string a sentence together? But also, this is irrelevant.
Right, but I mean, he said that he could no longer continue as a candidate. And so since you're the FBI director, I was just sort of wondering, like, who's running the country? Like if something bad happened.
I think we know, Matt. I think we know.
Biden about it right now. God forbid.
And on any number of
No,
occasions, I have
actually,
briefed.
Wendy, who owns the land the water tower is on? It's the county. Because look, I'll show it to you here. Let me not get too far behind here.
And as I said, those briefings have all been uneventful and unremarkable.
Oh, I can imagine them being uneventful. But in the work where the vice president's also present, like you say, there's like more than half the time there's these briefings, she's there too.
I don't know if I said more than half the time. Certainly, there have been times where she's been.
Okay, this is an interesting line of questioning, but unrelated. So Sheila, I think somebody had said, who was it? Sheila, who owns the Wendy, who owns the land the water tower is on? It looks like it's an easement. See, this right here is the water tower. See how this parcel is cut up so weird? It's like cut up. This part right here, that's the water tower. So the people that own this parcel, which is where the shooter shot from, sorry, it's mirrored. This parcel where the shooter shot from, that's not the same ownership structure of this little chunk of land right here. I think that's the township or the municipality that owns that, I think.
There have been other times where she hasn't.
I take you at your word when you say this is the most complicated threat environment you've ever observed over a long career in law enforcement. And I'm just kind of wondering, with this assassination attempt, with the invasion at our border, with all the Hamas that have been let in that you've talked about and briefed about, like, is Biden up to it? And if he's not up to it, and you're a guy who's been regularly briefing him, like who's been in on this conspiracy to hide the real Joe Biden from all of us for years? It never occurred to you that this guy wasn't up to it in all these briefings you did?
As I said, my briefings with the president have all been completely fine.
Were they between
The question is important, and that's why I'm like kind of letting him get on with it. But I have to be both sides of it. Just because I like his question more than the next person's question doesn't mean that it's not still completely irrelevant. Joe Biden has very little at this point to do with the public story of this assassination attempt.
He's asked questions. There hasn't been anything of note in the area that you're talking about.
Yeah, did you ever have to brief him before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m.? We hear those are as good hours.
I certainly times that I have briefed have included outside those hours.
Right. I just, I think the American people want to know how we got to this point with someone who's so diminished his own party has basically put him out to pasture. And since you had close proximity and the vice president had close proximity, I'm just kind of wondering if you were being straight with all of us about how things were going with him. I guess we'll have to figure that out.
You can count on me to be straight with you.
If there's a threat, Vanessa said, who is this information going to? Because Biden isn't up to par. I think Joe Biden has delegated this investigation. So he's not he's not the one that's doing the investigation. So I think he's irrelevant. No, if he was asking something like, did you talk to Joe Biden about this issue? But it's just irrelevant. It is.
We'll see.
I think if I recall correctly, it was about a 5-foot tall type of ladder. But importantly,
Let me go back a little.
But there's some questions about the FBI maybe being weaponized. Did President Biden ever ask you to get involved in the case in Orlando, Florida, where Kevin?
What's on his pen right there? What symbol is that on his pen?
He says that Mr. Gates
On the circular one.
is investigated for some sexual involvement with a 17-year-old girl. The president or anybody in the Democratic Party, as Mr. McCarthy has suggested, weaponized you and tried to get you involved in that case.
no, sir.
Good, thank you. Just wanted to make sure of that. Butler, Pennsylvania.
Who's
I read
he?
something about a ladder. He used a ladder to get up on that roof, and that the ladder was found somewhere a distance away. Is that true?
So we do know that he purchased a ladder. I think if I recall correctly, it was about a 5-foot tall type of ladder. But importantly, we did not find the ladder at the scene. So it's not clear that he used the ladder to get on top of the roof.
So you don't think
We're
the
still
ladder?
digging into all that, things related to the ladder and his access to the roof. But he did buy a ladder, but the ladder was not found at the scene.
Ladder didn't have any feet on it. It didn't walk off.
Right.
Thank you, sir. There have been a lot of threats against public officials. We've seen Mr. Scalise terribly shot, and we saw Gabby Gifford shot, and other Congress people, and many of us have had death threats. And the FBI has been made aware of those to protect us, and I appreciate that greatly. But we've also had election officials and poll workers threatened. What is the FBI doing in consultation with other law enforcement to ensure every eligible voter can safely and confidently cast a ballot this year?
So when it comes to threats to election workers in particular, we participate in the election threats task force that DOJ set up. We also, and there've been quite a number already of arrests and convictions under that task force. We have got a number of investigations underway that involve all kinds of threats to election workers, ranging from online threats to.
This is what I think too, Emily.
There was even some mailings that included fentanyl. So there's been a number of.
That he might have taken in people in compromising.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything I can share related to that. I can see if there's information we could provide and maybe get back to you on it.
If there were tapes of people in prominent positions, friends of his, he posed for pictures with, possibly in compromising positions, it would be, the public, I think, has a right to see those.
Well, I mean, how we handle evidence recovered in a criminal investigation has all kinds of rules that apply to it. I recognize the intense public interest in the subject, but we'd have to follow our rules. But I'm happy, like I said, I'm happy to follow up with my team on.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate your service, and
yes.
Thank you for being.
Where's Laura? Luna.
Gentlemen, yield the last 5. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Wray, for being here. How many shots did the shooter fire?
He don't know.
Well, we know that he fired it at least 8 because we recovered 8 cartridges on the roof.
Okay, and are all the cartridges and the unspent bullets, have they been, you know how many there are? You've accounted for all of those?
Who's this guy? He came across my crosshairs for some reason. Did he co-sponsor the letter wanting to have a congressional hearing on conservatorship abuse? Andy Biggs?
I assume yeah.
We believe we have. Again, there was lots of work still ongoing, but yes, we believe we have accounted.
And did the recovered shells, the cartridges, match the shooter's rifle?
My recollection is yes.
And you conducted analysis that confirms that?
Well, we work with ATF, but yes, so some of the work has been divided up. But.
And how many shells casings were recovered from the location of the counter snipers?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part.
From the counter snipers location.
That I don't have the answer, at least here at my fingertips.
Okay. Did the blood and tissue pattern of the shooter, did it match the stories or the witness testimony that you've heard so far?
Can you,
No, I heard
I'm
it.
not sure I'm following the question.
Well, I assume you've interviewed the counter snipers, or you have that evidence and other witnesses describing the kill of the shooter. And I'm wondering if the blood and tissue and brain matter is consistent with the testimony that you're receiving. In other words, is the physical,
In terms of the manner of death?
exactly, is the physical evidence consistent with where the shot from the counter sniper took place?
Yeah, so the autopsy is being handled by, as is not unusual, the state authorities. My understanding is thus far, I don't think it's fully complete, which is not totally unusual. But so far, nothing remarkable on that front.
That's from the body itself, but from actually the scene where the shooter was found, is it everything consistent with the testimony, the physical evidence at the scene? Is that consistent with the testimony you're seeing, that you've heard so far?
So far, yes. Again, ongoing investigation.
Were you able to determine whether the shooter took the gun up with him when he climbed up to the top of the roof, or was it
That is what I want to know.
placed there somewhere?
So that is something that we're drilling into right now that we don't know the answer to yet. I can tell you, which may be relevant though to your question, that, and I don't think this has been reported yet, that the weapon had a collapsible stock, which could explain why it might have been less easy for people to observe, because one of the things that we're finding is people have observed him, the first people to observe him with the weapon were when he was already on the roof, and we haven't yet found anybody with firsthand observation of him.
When I start my psychic vision channel, I'll tell y'all what my psychic vision says where that weapon was.
Weapon walking around beforehand. So that doesn't mean he wasn't, obviously, but the collapsible stock is potentially a very significant feature that might be relevant to that.
Did he have the scope?
I believe so, but as I sit here right now, I don't remember.
Okay. You mentioned about 2 hours before the incident that he'd had a drone and he was using a drone. Instead of me putting words in your mouth, just tell me how you discovered the drone, how you discovered the time, and how you discovered, if you can describe what he would have been observing with the drone and how you determined that.
So this is something that's very much ongoing right now. We're going back and forth with our lab as they continue to do work on it. What I would say is the drone was in his car. As I said, we've been able to, by exploiting the drone, determine its use and flight paths. There were no pictures or videos on the drone of the day of the rally, for example, but we have been able to reverse engineer the flight path of the drone from the day of.
Can you imagine?
And that's how we know that for about 11 minutes from, I think it's around 3:50 p.m. to 4 p.m., somewhere in that range, he was flying the drone, and we have the flight path. It's about 200 yards away from where former President Trump would ultimately be speaking. And so that would have primarily given him a vantage point. I'm trying to think how to describe this. If the former president's podium is that way,
yeah,
the drone would be over here looking, say 200 yards again off this way, looking back. So it would have shown the shooter, we think, again, we're still doing more work on this. I really want to qualify what I'm saying. I'm trying to be transparent and lean in here. We think it would have shown him kind of what would have been behind him.
But when you say behind him, behind the shooter.
Correct. Like in other words, almost like giving him a rear view mirror of the scene behind him, except again, he wasn't flying it overhead while he was later back for the assassination.
But he would have had, with the drone, he would have been able to also assess kind of what, because the stage I assume was already set, he'd been able to assess that angle with rooftop as well, forward and back.
Why are y'all saying Ghislaine is here? Ain't she in prison?
Well, certainly going towards the podium. Again, we're still trying to figure out exactly what he saw, because we're having to, in effect, because there's no recording of what he saw during those 11 minutes. Our hypothesis at this point, the experts think he would have been live streaming it. And so we're trying to, in effect, say, okay, if this was the flight pattern, given these capabilities of the drone, what would you have seen? What could you have seen for those 11 minutes? And again, it wasn't over the stage or the kind of the hub of the rally. It's about 200 yards away, but it looks like it would have been looking, let's say, length of a football field or so, more, kind of towards the podium.
Great, thank you, Mr.
How many separate times was the shooter on the premises?
What's the premises?
So again, with the caveat that we're continuing to do work on it, we believe that the first time he traveled to the grounds was, I think, a week before. He spent roughly 20 minutes there. Then he went to the grounds again on the morning of the event, it appears, for about 70 minutes, I think. But again, I've qualified that. I'd have to go back and look to be sure of that part. And then he came back in the afternoon. So that would be, I guess, a third time for good. But that included things like this drone activity we just talked about.
Gentleman from California, direct next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for appearing. Thank you for the extraordinary job that you're doing. Please convey our thanks to the men and women at the Bureau for their incredible work. I worked with them since I was an assistant U.S. attorney more than 30 years ago. Let me start with a threshold question I'm curious about. When I applied to be an assistant U.S. attorney, I had to go through a background check. Do candidates for the FBI have to go through background checks?
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Would someone with dozens of felony convictions survive a background check for the Bureau?
No.
So they would never be hired by the Bureau?
No.
Well, clearly the Bureau has, you don't have to comment on this, I know you won't, but clearly the Bureau has higher standards for their hiring than one of America's great political parties. Let me turn to the events of the tragic shooting.
What's he talking about?
Have you been able to gain access to the shooter's electronic communications, social media, and with the caveats that you mentioned?
Was he trying to say, like, because Donald Trump convictions, or what? Because, like, I think that the American people can just vote for who they want to. Like, I even see some of y'all wearing shirts that say, I'm voting for the felon. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what's the director of the FBI supposed to do about who y'all want to vote for? I ain't voting for him. But,
that investigation is still early. Have you been able to make any deductions, or are there any indications of the shooter's motivation from those electronic holdings?
So in terms of our ability to access it, we have been able to get into and exploit a number of electronic devices, digital devices, but not all of them yet. And then within his various accounts, we've been able to get access to some of them, but some of them we're still waiting on. Some of them we may never get access to because of the encryption issue, that it presents an increasingly vexing barrier for law enforcement, not just the FBI, but for law enforcement all over the country. But we're still drilling into that. We have some information. Some places we've been able to look. Some places we will be able to look. Some places we may never be able to see, no matter how good our legal process is. But that's what we're looking at right now. In terms of what we've been able to find so far, a lot of the usual repositories of information have not yielded anything notable in terms of motive.
I haven't been able to find a single thing on this guy. Like, I have a face recognition subscription. It's like AI, like face recognition. It'll like find pictures of a person like across the internet. And I've used it a lot. It's usually pretty good. I haven't found one picture of this guy.
Like ideology. Having said that, it does appear fairly clear that he was interested in public figures, kind of more broadly, and I think this is important, that starting somewhere around July 6th or so, he became very focused on former President Trump and this rally. And so one of the things that I can share here today that has not been shared yet is
Look.
that we've just in the last couple of days found that from our review, to your point about devices, analysis of a laptop that the investigation ties to the shooter reveals that on July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy?
Ooh, y'all heard that?
So that's a search that obviously is significant in terms of his state of mind. That is the same day that it appears that he registered for the Butler rally.
Oh,
And when you say that his electronic holdings indicated an interest in different public figures, without revealing anything you're not comfortable revealing about those public figures, can you tell us anything generally about them, either the offices they hold, their political party, or was it simply people of a high profile?
Well, a couple things. First, the images that we've recovered so far from, I can't remember which of his various devices, appeared to be what we call cached images from searches of news articles. So if you do a news article search, of course, if there are photos on it, those photos get stored automatically in your cache, as opposed to me searching or him searching for a specific person and getting up images of that person. As far as the pictures that are like that, doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it so far, other than these are, all prominent public people, but they cover both parties, they cover both U.S. people and even some foreign public officials. So that part doesn't appear to, that one repository of information doesn't appear to be overly indicative of motive, other than interest in public figures, but that could be just because he was reading news stories. So we're still trying to drill into that. That's why all of these outstanding legal process returns that we're waiting on for various accounts, platforms, et cetera, any one of them could be one that would have very indicative, very important information.
If I could be permitted one very short additional question, Chairman. From that, any indication of any other particular target, that is someone who was not just sort of generically the subject of the searches you described, but for which there was more of an interest than others?
There's the information I just described at the moment does not appear particularly indicative of targeting in its own right.
So all I'm hearing is the kid was maybe just reading articles online that had some type of political and slant, but it's political leaders from all across the spectrum and way.
That dot, once we get other information, could connect in a way that might be more meaningful.
What is a stingray? I'm unfamiliar with y'all. Y'all keep saying stingray.
But I'm sharing that piece of information with this committee and with the American public, but I think it's important that we put down a qualification. This does not appear to be some kind of target list or something like that. This is cached images from running searches of news stories. And again, there's nothing at the moment there's no pattern from that particular piece of information that is overly remarkable so far.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Director, you previously told us that you consider the situation on the southern border to be a massive security threat to our country. Is that still your assessment?
I stand by my prior testimony. And in fact, just in the last month or so, we've conducted a significant series of arrests. I say our Joint Terrorism Task Force is working with ICE of a number of individuals with suspected international terrorism ties. And I have also been very vocal about the fact that since the last time I appeared before you, that we are increasingly concerned about the possibility, not just of a foreign terrorist inspired attack, which is very much a concern, but even the potential for a coordinated foreign terrorist attack, perhaps like what we've seen against the concert hall in Russia, for example, but just here in the United States.
Well, the 19 suicide bombers who overstayed visas were responsible for 3,000 American deaths on 9/11. What's your best estimate of the number of foreign terrorists who are now in our country?
I don't know that I could give you that number. What I can
Why
tell
are we talking about foreign terrorism? We are supposed to be talking about a shooting, assassination attempt.
is we have lots of
Oh.
foreign terrorism related investigations, but that doesn't mean that all of them came in, illegally or anything like that.
It seems to me that the simplest act of terrorism would be for dozens of guerrillas to attack low security, high density venues, for example, Friday night high school football games all across the country at the same hour. With bombs and automatic weapons that would produce thousands of casualties from coast to coast in a matter of minutes. How likely is such a scenario?
Well, what you're describing would require, of course, a lot of coordination. But what I will tell you, and I think you're onto a particularly important point from my perspective, which is that unlike the 9/11 attacks, which again, I was in FBI headquarters on the day of 9/11, and so I remember it vividly, and I've spent plenty of time in the period after that in my prior positions engaged with the families and the victims. But what we're seeing more and more with the foreign terrorist threat, and frankly, also the domestic terrorism threat, is a focus on kind of like what you're talking about, well, what I would call soft targets, which is really for the American people's benefit, just intelligence community speak for where everyday people live their everyday lives.
What terrorist groups have now infiltrated our country that you're tracking?
Oh.
Well, I don't know that there's been a lot of focus on the number of known or suspected terrorists encountered at the border, and that number has increased over the last 5 or 6 years, and that should be of concern. But frankly, to me, the bigger concern is individuals who weren't either weren't on the watch list at the time they came in because there wasn't information known yet that ties them to terrorism. And it's only after they get in, some new piece of information develops somewhere overseas.
I'm about to go take my bathroom break if these people keep talking about stuff that I'm not here to listen to you.
That's a bigger concern.
We've been warned that they basically bet against a blank sheet of paper. If they don't have a record in this country, Border Patrol probably doesn't have any record. They're released in the country. You find out later of the dangers.
Or if they use fake documents and there aren't biometrics to connect.
No, please. This is not what this is for.
Sometimes there are people who come in who, because of the nature of the threat information that puts somebody on the watch list, there wasn't, fingerprints from the person at the time, because not every piece of intelligence comes with fingerprints. So then the guy comes in using fake ID,
and of course,
there's no reason to connect them.
And of course, the 2 million gotaways, you know absolutely nothing about.
Well, I don't know about absolutely nothing, because we may come across them in other things. And one of the key parts of our collective defense here is that we work with 800,000 sworn law enforcement across the country, and we train them on the right questions to ask and things like that, so that we can build in additional eyes and ears if they, do a traffic stop or whatever happens to be. We run a greater chance of leveraging all that to pick up people who may have slipped through the cracks.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Director, we're about 100 days until the election. Russia has attacked our democracy in past elections. Are they seeking to do it in this one?
We assess that the Russian government continues to want to influence and in various ways interfere with our democracy, with our electoral process. In fact, just in the last few weeks, we announced a significant disruption of a generative AI enhanced social media, bot farm essentially of the Russians that was designed to be an influence operation, and some of the fictitious profiles of those bots purported to be U.S. persons. So they're still at it. We've seen that in election cycle after election cycle.
Do the Russians have a preferred candidate?
I'm not sure that I can speak to that here, but certainly what I would tell you is it's not just the Russians. And I think that's important for people to know too. There's a lot of attention to the Russians, as there should be. But we also know, you may recall that in 2020, Director Ratcliffe and I announced an effort by the Iranians to try to interfere. And then more recently, we've had indictments related to China. 34 Chinese MPS officers creating fictitious personas, posting false information online, full of narratives designed to sow divisiveness, discord, undermine us. And I'm talking about narratives that they were pushing, again, purporting to be Americans, but actually Chinese MPS officers.
This is true.
For example, trashing any suggestion that COVID came from a lab leak.
This stuff is what he's saying right now, from what I've been able to look into and stuff, is true. On the Russia front, on the China front. I don't know about the Iran part, but he's right to some extent. That's not every single thing people have said, no. But again, what's this have to do with the assassination attempt? I don't know, and I'm getting bored.
Or trashing U.S. law enforcement on the occasion of the anniversary of George Floyd's death.
And shifting to the attempted assassination on the former president.
Let's shift to that.
Clear,
Let's shift.
in America, violence has never been the answer. Not on a certain day in January or a recent day in July. And I just want to go through the shooting just briefly with you. How many
It is
officers
it is
were
true.
within the perimeter? Just ballpark figure.
You know, that really goes to the security posture, which is the subject of the DHS Inspector General's review and the outside panel, independent panel that's.
Would you say probably more than 100 though?
I have to believe that number, but I don't have that number at my fingertips. Our focus is on the shooter and his attack.
And the shooter was able to get 8 shots off before he was killed.
That's what it would appear, yes.
Type of weapon used by the shooter was an assault rifle?
Oh, here we go.
Style rifle.
So that means one trigger pull, 1 round. Is that right?
Essentially.
Do you like to shoot?
Do I? Yeah. Yes.
Do you know the difference between an AR and a bolt action rifle?
I don't.
I'm not going to try to sit here and engage on sort of firearms expertise, but
no.
The
fired a
action,
variety of weapons. But
had the shooter used a bolt action rifle, would that have been one trigger pull, 1 round?
That's my understanding.
He's about to ask. I feel it coming. I feel it coming. If people didn't have that, would it make the Secret Service job easier or harder?
Would there have been more, well, on an assault rifle, trigger pull, round, bolt action, non-assault rifle, what's the difference? Is it faster, slower?
He was able to get more rounds off more quickly than he would have with other kinds of weapons.
And that's my point, is that we can add additional resources to protect political candidates, and we should. The people who went to that rally deserved to be protected from gun violence, just like
they got on topic for 1 second and they're veering right off. They're getting right on off again. I don't know this man's political affiliation, but now I could probably take a pretty good guess.
Deserve to be as safe as I deserve to be when we are at political rallies. So we really need to step back and think, if we allow these weapons to be in our country, can we truly protect our elected officials? And can we truly protect, most importantly, our children in the next?
Sir, it's cute. I understand what you're trying to do. All it took was somebody having their lazy ass on that roof. All right. We really don't have to go and take over people's, shit just to get somebody on a roof. Please.
Gentleman yields back. It is good to have Mr. Massey back with us today. Some of us had a chance to go to Kentucky over the last few weeks and visit with Thomas and his family and hear all kinds of wonderful stories about Rhonda. Amazing lady, gentle spirit, and we're glad to have Mr. Massey back with us. And next 5 minutes belong to you, Congressman.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Wray, how many counter snipers were
Who's he?
present at the rally that day, and which of the counter snipers took the shot that took out the would-be assassin?
I don't have the number of counter snipers. I know it was the Secret Service counter sniper who took the shot that eliminated the shooter. We've conducted a number of interviews, including of him.
So was it one of the two that we see in the videos on top of the roof, or was it a different location that shows?
I'm afraid I don't have that at my fingertips here.
Okay, you mentioned that the would-be assassin bought a 5-foot ladder. You have a credit card evidence of that, but it looks like on the scene there was a larger ladder that he might have used.
Yes, Massey.
Do you know which ladder he used to get to the roof? And do you have
Here's my psychic vision. This is all a distraction because it don't damn matter. I don't care if he teleported onto the roof. He got up there. And why did he get up there? Because wasn't nobody on top of it else. That for me, ladder, banana fana faux fatter, it don't really matter if he flew up there, if he jumped up there, if he climbed on an air conditioner up there. Y'all are getting all off in the weeds. The man was on the roof and he should have not been. It don't matter how he got up there to me. But if we do find out that they lied about something, that's when it becomes material, in my opinion.
of that 5-foot ladder and the other ladder? And do you know how the taller ladder got to the scene?
So this whole business about the ladder is something we're drilling into more. We do have possession of the 5-foot ladder that he purchased.
This is the big ladder.
To his attempted assassination.
This comes from Daily Mail.
That we traced the purchase of that ladder from a receipt, a bloodied receipt that he had on him at the time.
Daily Mail got this pic.
We do not yet know for sure how exactly he got up on the roof. We're looking at, various forensic pieces to try to kind of piece that together. So more to come on that.
Do you know where the 5-foot ladder was found?
Yeah.
Retrieved? Was it near the roof or was it still in his vehicle?
Neither. I don't have it in front of me, but I know that it was not. I know that it was not on scene, and I know that it was not in his vehicle. But we can circle back to you. And
Okay. Is there any evidence at all that he may have been in contact with somebody else before this occurred that may have had any prior knowledge or may have helped him plan this?
Good question. I like these questions.
Needless to say, that is a question that we're intensely focused on because that would obviously be incredibly meaningful. So far, underline, so far, we have not found any evidence of any accomplices or co-conspirators, foreign or domestic.
And you're using geolocation data to see if his cell phone was near another cell phone, I presume?
Right. We're doing lots of different kinds of cellular analysis, geolocation stuff, looking at his accounts.
It's possible too, y'all. Again, I personally don't think it's worth getting all off in the weeds. But personally, I think maybe he had brought a ladder, maybe, because he didn't know what was going to be blocked off, what wasn't, and he wanted to be able to, maybe he knew if I can get up to the 5-foot mark, then I can definitely get on the building. But then he got there and he scoped it out, realized he didn't need that ladder because there were so many other ways onto the roof. But again, I really don't know.
He from everything we've seen, which is consistent with what we've learned in interviews, a lot of people describe him as a loner. That does kind of fit with what we're seeing in his devices, his list of contacts for.
See, there's also conflicting reports about this as well. There's some kids out here saying that they didn't go to classes with him, but they went to his school and he was a loner and a loser and he got bullied. Then there's like neighbors who are saying, no, he was like kind of to himself, but he was friendly. He would say hello when you did talk to him. He was chill. He was cool. Then there's other people that were in his actual homeroom who were saying, no, he had friends. Like, was he the most popular? No, but he had friends. It wasn't like he was a total loser. So it's like, which one of these people's telling the truth?
Is very short, compared to what you would normally see from most people. So it doesn't appear to be a whole lot of interaction between him, face to face or digital with a lot of people.
Okay, thank you.
That doesn't mean there's not any, and that's why we're drilling into. We're trying to talk to anybody who's had any engagement with him whatsoever, digital, in person, classmates, coworkers,
right,
etc.
Appreciate that. And now I want to talk about another possible assassination attempt. And I'll start by showing a video of President Biden. And this is from recently. This is in the last month. If we can play that.
Gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence. I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America.
Okay, and he's referring to January 6th. Were there gallows erected to hang Mike Pence as the president?
I think they should do that on all these hearings, put the sign language interpreter, because it's going to be live. I mean, how the deaf people watch it? Is there a way to watch it with that? Because I would start streaming it with that.
I'm not aware of any physical gallows. I can't remember whether from a demonstration perspective, there may not have been some kind of replica or
Yeah.
symbol of something like that.
That's my impression. Can we show, can you raise that up so you can see it? It looks like there was some kind of prop that was built. The construction doesn't look like it lends itself to actually hanging somebody. It's more of a prop, I think, as you suggested, that was erected on January 6th. But if the president were correct, that these gallows were erected to hang Mike Pence, that would be a very serious allegation, wouldn't it?
I would take it very seriously, yes.
Has anybody been arrested, or do you have any leads in conjunction with the erection of this gallows? We had a picture here on the screen, if you can show it again. It was just up there. There's an individual here who's seen on near these gallows. Has he been arrested? Have you identified this person?
You know, I don't know that I can speak.
I don't know what in the hell it has to do with anything. Who's this man? I'm girl, please.
Specific person or the gallows that are pictured on the image. You know, we have had, I think, 850 people who have pled guilty to federal crimes related to January 6th, and I think another 180, I think it is, convicted at trials. So I can't be sure.
And some of them merely for going into the Capitol, but here the president suggests that individual intended to hang Vice President Pence, which it seems like kind of a wild claim myself, given the construction of those gallows. But if we are to take him seriously, or even if we aren't, let me just finish by saying this. If you have no leads, or you're not sure if anybody who erected those gallows was arrested.
I am bored. Please.
To incidents. Mr. Wray, today I want to focus on the role of the FBI and the need for the Bureau to remain politically neutral.
Thank you.
And independent.
Yes. Oh,
The
she's going to talk about
FBI
2025.
cannot and should not be subject to the whims of any president. The majority apparently doesn't think that the FBI needs to be.
She's going to talk about 2025. I don't know anything about it, y'all. She might be right. She might be right. I don't know.
Politically neutral and independent. They want an FBI subordinate to the president, not accountable to the American people. That is one part of a larger plan to undermine our democracy, to remove the checks and balances that have protected us, and ultimately to subvert our freedoms.
You saw that?
agenda, promulgated by the former president, his loyalists, and their MAGA allies, is called Project 2025. It is publicly available online.
It might be
I
bad.
encourage everyone who's watching this to Google it.
I'm going to Google it.
Includes plans to undermine every part of our government, including the FBI. Trump's Project 2025 agenda says
The conservative
director
promise.
of the FBI must not be independent of politics, but instead must do whatever the president orders. Under Trump's Project 2025, Trump loyalists would undermine the non-political and independent structure of the FBI. Project 2025 openly calls on the next conservative administration to support, quote, a vast expansion of the number of political appointees in every office across the DOJ, especially the FBI. And so, Mr. Wray, given your extensive experience as a law enforcement professional at DOJ across multiple Republican and Democratic administrations, why do you think it's important that the FBI maintain political independence from the president?
I actually agree with this, just like in principle. I think it should be, but that being said, isn't the FBI already an executive branch? But he delegated the answering authority to Congress. I don't exactly know the administration of how this works, but I do think in general, I don't know. I shouldn't even speak on this because I don't know what they're talking about. But in general, sure, there should be checks and balances. I guess that's what we can agree on.
I think the FBI is and needs to stay independent. And that means protecting American people without fear or favor upholding the Constitution and the rule of law, and it means following the facts wherever they lead, no matter who likes it. And I add that last part is independent. Doesn't
Thank
mean
you.
it's not part of the executive branch. It doesn't mean the FBI director doesn't serve at the pleasure of the president.
Yeah, see, it's already a part of the exec. That's what I thought.
Doesn't mean that the way we do our work
Has to be
has to be in.
Yeah, thank you. I have another question about the role of attorneys at the FBI Office of General Counsel. How do we protect that work?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The role, what role do the attorneys at the FBI Office of General Counsel play in ensuring that the Bureau respects the constitutional rights of American citizens? How do we protect that work?
So
I thought this man was here to answer questions about a shooter.
Experience, the lawyers in the Office of General Counsel play an incredibly important role in ensuring that our agents have their questions about how to comply with the law and conducting their work answered, and ensuring that we conduct our work in the right way, which means scrupulously adhering to the laws and the rules that apply to us.
I just wanted to say before I yield, Mr. Chairman, that the Project 2025 also eliminates the FBI's Office of General Counsel in-house lawyer.
I mean, I said I didn't want to run for president, but at this rate, I might have to do it.
Who are responsible for that role. I appreciate your indulgence, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin's recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it was when you were here December of last year, Mr. Wray, that you said blinking lights were going off in regards to the southern border and what is happening down there.
Huh?
Has the border situation improved in terms of your assessment with the security of Americans since you were last here? And
I'm like, at this point, should we just go back to my notes that I took on the AGR building? Because I think I have more answers than the FBI at this point.
Well, I guess a couple things, and I appreciate the question. So first, the blinking lights comment.
Baby, they're not going to neutralize me because they cannot neutralize God's favorite. I'm here for a purpose and a reason.
I made refers more broadly to the threat environment that I'm seeing as FBI director across a wide range of threats. Contributing to that in a variety of ways are the threats that emanate from the border. So it's not a comment just on the border issues. It's the threat environment that we face more broadly. In my experience in law enforcement, I am increasingly concerned that foreign terrorists could seek to exploit vulnerabilities at our southwest border or at other ports of entry or in other aspects of our immigration system to facilitate an attack here in the United States. I think that is something we have to be concerned about. There's been a lot of focus on numbers of this, numbers of that, and I understand that. But as I think was referenced in an earlier question, it doesn't take very many foreign terrorists.
God favors a lot of y'all in this chat, but he don't favor them all. Like, for example, whenever they try to attack me, he got to pick a favorite.
To be a real problem. We had 19 hijackers responsible for the 9/11 attacks. And we just not that long ago had a case, some of the members of the committee will remember, where we charged an individual for trying to smuggle individuals.
Where's Nancy Mace and Lauren Bobart and Marjorie Taylor Greene that's yelling and snapping and where's all that? Where's AOC?
To assassinate former President Bush.
Are you concerned that the Border Patrol chief, former Border Patrol chief Rodney Scott, said that he was concerned about very, very minuscule data that they're receiving. So there's all this, we are told that illegal aliens are vetted against databases, but oftentimes they're doing biometrics as they come into this country, but not looking behind it in their home countries. Does that concern you when there's not a review done in the home country?
Well, we certainly need as much help as we can get from the countries of origin of these people. When I say origin, not just where they come from originally, but countries that.
This is what I got up right now over here. This is the Project 2025. It appears to be like at least like 1,000 pages long or something. Just scrolling through it because they're not talking about what we're here to talk about. So multitask.
Well, I mean, we need more help from our foreign partners. There's no question about
I'm
that.
saying all this. Watch us end up finding out he's like a Russian born or something.
It's an important part
How about our domestic partners like the CIA and others that are supposed to protect us?
So there's been a lot of discussion, of course, over the last several years about the pivot to what's called the hard targets, right? The understandable focus, which I support, of focusing on the threat posed by China and Russia and Iran. But with that comes, if you look at, for example, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, we start.
I like looking at who's involved here, right? Like what all these companies, who runs them, all that.
Yeah, my time's running out. Has Vice President Harris met with you in regards to the border?
Well, I've been in meetings
What the hell?
with that have included the vice president that have in different ways touched on.
I've heard of this.
Specifically asked you for a meeting in regards to the threat that is at the border.
You know, I'm not going to get into sort of specific meetings, but I can tell you that I've been in meetings that have included, among other people, the vice president that touch on border security issues.
Did she ask you questions about what you thought needed to be done in regards to reducing this threat to the American people?
You know, I really can't get into specific conversations.
Is support for President Trump a security concern within the FBI?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
Is support for President Trump a security concern amongst your employees?
No.
Is objection to the COVID-19 vaccine a security threat?
Not from my perspective.
Who improved what is termed the Trump questionnaire within the FBI that was done by SIIS? Dina Perkins, Jeffrey Ventry were behind it. Who was responsible for that? And did you know that there was a Trump questionnaire out there?
What's that?
So the document you're asking about is an interview outline that we only recently learned about, and in my view is completely inappropriate. I asked my team to get to the bottom of what happened.
Oh man, my family said beans, but it could have been because they got it messed up. They do have their own little idiolect.
That doesn't happen again, and I've learned that it's not an FBI form, that its use was isolated, that it was created not by an FBI employee, but by an outside contractor, and the individual is no longer affiliated with the FBI. But we are sending what we have found to the Office of Inspector General, and we'll cooperate, of course, with anything they.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just close with this. We keep hearing about these isolated examples, whether it's Richmond Catholics, this instance.
Who's in charge?
I think he did something before this guy that I liked. I think he's kind of sassy.
Charge at a campaign rally, setting it up. Secret Service or a campaign?
I would like to know that.
Because when I was there, had a couple of law enforcement individuals alluding to that question as well. They gave me an example. They said, if a Secret Service says you need to set up a line of dump trucks behind the stage to serve to protect the candidate, and the campaign says that's bad optics, who ends up winning the debate?
Yeah, who's got the final call?
Who's in charge?
Mm-hmm.
And as you investigate this crime scene, hope you ask the local elected officials. I spoke to a county supervisor.
Yeah, I just skipped ahead. I think it was about 40 seconds just to catch up.
Local police and sheriff. They all had information they wanted us to know, to relay. We just didn't have the opportunity to sit down and talk to them. There was a lot of concern that they weren't given enough time to prepare for this rally. They thought there were things that could have been done better. And ultimately, what I keep thinking, what I keep coming back to is question, who's in charge at these rallies? I think it's an important one because we have an election right around the corner. Pennsylvania, Butler, these areas, battleground states around the country will continue to be areas where candidates, both sides, will show up and the threats will continue to be there. So I hope, Director Wray, that you'll keep that statement in mind as you continue to investigate this crime scene.
Well, I appreciate the question. I will tell you that
I think that's a reasonable question. I'm curious too, because like I said earlier, who had to ask? Like, is there a permit that has to be? I mean, I went through all the town meeting minutes and I didn't find it. I went through the business permit requests and I didn't find it. Like, who has to ask to have an event? Because I remember Bam Margera telling me, same state, you know, where Castle Bam is. He told me that eventually, like after a while, he had all these wild parties. Eventually, like the police were like, you can't have these parties anymore because it's like a risk, and you know, people can't get back, and we don't have the whatever for this. There's always crazy stuff going on. So yeah, who's in charge?
Conducted well over 400 interviews, but we have many more still to conduct. And as is not unusual in an investigation, I'm sure there will be situations where we have to go back to people we've already interviewed with follow-up questions. And our interviews cover a wide range of people. I do think it's important to make sure that the committee and the American people understand the scope of our investigation versus the scope of others. Our investigation is focused on the shooter and his attack. There is, of course, and I understand completely why, there are two separate reviews, one by the DHS Inspector General and the other by this outside independent panel that's been announced, that are focused on the security posture, the adequacy of the security posture at the rally, Secret Service decision-making and actions and things like that. And so I certainly understand why there are all those questions. But those are in scope of those two other reviews. And of course, whatever, you know, Congress chooses to do. Our investigation, though, because of our interviews of people who are on the scene, will relate to that in some ways. And we're going to share whatever we learn that's relevant with those other reviews.
Director, in my last minute that I have, I'm going to flip quickly to your good job resources. Earlier this year in the Appropriations Committee, you testified that you were, for 2024, your budget was $500 million below what you needed to sustain your 2023 efforts. A few minutes ago, you talked about foreign terrorists. The last few weeks, I know information has emerged. That information came from FISA information that was able to be collected overseas on these possible terrorist threats. What we have here today is a domestic terrorist, what looks to be a lone wolf. Your statements, there's nothing.
I feel like I'm watching like a lunchtime presentation at law school, not in a good way.
Air that would have tipped anybody off to this individual. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Well, I don't know that I'd go quite that far because we're still investigating a lot related to the shooter.
I know. Can somebody cuss somebody out or something? It's just, my God. Oh, my God.
Mr. Chair, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Texas, recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director Wray, for being here. When did you last speak with President Biden?
Here we go again.
I don't have the exact date, but it's been certainly since the since the shooting.
So you have spoken to the president since the assassination attempt on President Trump's life?
Yes, sir.
And what was the mental state of the president?
We had a perfectly professional.
They need to stop.
And are you? Do you have any scheduled briefings of the president upcoming?
Not at the moment, specifically scheduled. No.
In 2016 to 2015, top FBI officials infamously texted about, quote, their insurance policy to make sure Trump was never elected or inaugurated as president. If any FBI agents texted, emailed, or expressed disappointment that Trump survived the assassination attempt or otherwise editorialized about the assassination attempt?
Probably.
I don't know about any agents. There have been at least two instances, I think, or one instance of an individual who posted something I consider outrageous, totally inappropriate, and unacceptable. And that,
yeah, I need to look into this. Somebody said, C said, I noticed in the comments of the last video, someone said Trump was friends with Larry Fink from BlackRock and was going to have him in his administration. This is false, and Trump already addressed this. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's not true because I haven't looked into it. But thank you for providing that counterpoint. I'll have to look into it.
has been referred to our
board
to continue in the hiring process who normally would have been stopped back in December of 2016.
Yeah, I can't speak to Director Comey's
what were the
changes. I can tell you that at least since I've been director, changes that we have made to.
Well, we're standing on a specific question where standards change. Phase one, the specific part of the process where they changed in 2016.
Well, I don't recall if they were changed in 2016. Obviously, I started, as your question presupposes, after that. What I can tell you is, since that time, we have made changes to various phases of the process, but none of them, this is important, none of them lowered the standards. In fact, if anything, they actually increased.
So are you familiar with reporting that we have, and we've asked questions to you about this? I'm not sure the result of the questions that are more quote easily accommodate a large pool of available applicants. FBI special agent hiring standards have been relaxed and requirements measurably lowered. This, according to a group of former agents who have testified about this and written a report and submitted it to Congress. In addition, specifically, minority people with 20-year careers, one in particular, a minority served for more than 20 years, wrote in this report and submitted it to Congress saying these standards were in fact lowered, and that in fact, if you were hiring, you were moved off of hiring if you put quality above these kinds of DEI requirements. Do you reject this report? And do you have comments on
Now we're talking about DEI.
I haven't read.
I'm
aware of the report. I know that I've read every detail of it, but I can tell you that the claim that we have lowered our standards to be less selective and less competitive is not accurate.
So do you believe these former agents are lying to Congress when they submit a report to Congress stipulating and suggesting otherwise? Or are you saying that they are lying?
I'm saying they're mistaken.
Okay, but they're affirmatively on the record. They're telling us and submitting a report to Congress saying that those facts are directly contradicting what you're testifying here today. So I just want to be clear so we know we're saying that they are submitting evidence to our record to the contrary that you say is untruthful.
I encounter all the time when I travel around the country and have conversations with our agents, and one of the things I try to do is have meetings with some of the longer serving agents without executive management.
Malachite said, can I do a special episode about legalese, specifically in relation to matters concerning national security and continuity of government? It seems like the language itself is often used to conceal intent. I took a whole class in law school, like an upper level class. You had to be like a second or third year to take it. And it was called Just and Unjust Wars. And that is where I learned about unmanned drones and things like that participating in war. And that's where I saw the evidence of the Russia, attempted interference and the China and the this and the that. And it was evidence. I saw it. I didn't believe it before I saw it, but I saw it. The teacher showed it to us. And this is mainstream too. This is not fringe conspiracy. Like, there are some fringe conspiracy aspects of these theories that take it farther than what is mainstream. But it was called Just and Unjust Wars. And probably like 20% of that class was spent talking about issues of national security, matters concerning national security, states of emergency, and how the president gets way too much power, basically. I mean, that's how they were teaching it to us there. There is probably a slant to every class I took, but it is very, very deep how it goes.
The implication is it's untruthful. So, but I need to move on. I got 1 minute left. Are you familiar with the case of Paulette Harlow? She's a 75-year-old elderly woman from Massachusetts with a debilitating medical condition. She was prosecuted for violating the FACE Act and sentenced to 2 years in prison. She has to go to Texas.
Yeah, I saw it unknown.
She was praying at an abortion clinic in Washington, D.C. The FBI interrogated and investigated her. Do you think it is appropriate for a 75-year-old woman who is praying at a clinic in D.C. to be put in prison for 2 years for that activity? Just a simple question. Do you think that's appropriate?
I'm not familiar with the specific case.
Me neither.
You're not familiar with that case. It's been significantly in the headlines, but you don't know how to comment on that case. That it's appropriate.
I highly doubt this man reads headlines. I mean, I don't really even. Like, I do it for to come over here and make videos, but I highly doubt that the FBI director is reading the news. Highly, unless it's about him.
75-year-old woman to be put in prison for 2 years for praying at a clinic.
Again, since I'm not familiar with the case, I don't want to start weighing in because I don't know all the facts. But what I can tell you is that when it comes to FACE Act enforcement and abortion-related violent extremism, I think one of the things that gets lost, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify it, is that really since the Dobbs decision, actually more of our abortion-related violent extremism investigations have focused on violence against pro-life facilities as opposed to the other way around. And we've had a number of investigations. We're using FACE Act resources and our JTTFs.
We're still waiting on responses on letters that we've sent indicating the data to the contrary. There's been significant amount of efforts in targeting of people who are pro-lifers who go to clinics and that they've been prosecuted, like this case, a 75-year-old
Listen, to be honest with you, all right, Roy, if you want to go there, the people who pro-lifers I've seen at the clinics are grotesque. Okay, I'm not talking about all of y'all. I know some of y'all go over there and you're nice and stuff, but people go to those clinics for other reasons. Yes, they do. I know firsthand. And it's not all people going there is for abortion. Some people had a miscarriage and they have a dead fetus in their body. Some people have things going on. And when you show up to those clinics and you freaks are out there with pictures of dead carcasses, that is way, way more damaging than probably what 50% of the people are going to that clinic for. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, maybe a 70-year-old woman who's praying, but that hasn't been my experience. My experience, what I've seen is it's violence. And that's why I don't do this pick a side thing, because they are deranged over there. They bring pictures of the most grotesque and horrifying things imaginable. You can't even show them on the internet without getting your account suspended. And they're harassing people with it. So, no, shut up.
now going to jail in Texas for 2 years because she was praying at a clinic in Washington, D.C. And we've submitted questions on that, and I'd appreciate a response on it. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Director Wray, for being here and for the work that your team does, as well as for sharing the information that you've been able to today. You just got a couple questions about that seem to imply that there was some problem with the FBI's diversity efforts, and certainly the 1950s version of the FBI was singularly Caucasian male agents, etc. Is the FBI a better force for having a diverse range of employees and agents?
I think diversity makes us better.
And this is what the deranged people will say. If you're going to do it, you should know what it looks like. But there's a difference between doing research, knowing what it looks like, being told in the safety of a medical context inside a clinic, and being harassed. And that's what these people are doing. They're harassing. They're harassing people in front of clinics. I've seen it. You're not going to be able to convince me of what I've seen with my eyes. You're not going to be able to convince me against it. I've seen it. It's mean. It's hateful. It's not somebody, little old lady sitting there going, if anybody wants any information, come over here. Maybe if you're going to do it, you should know it. No. That's not what they're doing. Y'all not going to gaslight me. Y'all not going to gaslight me. It's hateful. It's hateful. It's hateful, and it's not coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of being fucked up and deranged.
But like everything else, it has to be done the right way. I think we can have a more diverse workforce and do it without lowering our standards. And that's, in my view, what we've done.
And you haven't lowered standards at the FBI.
We have not. I repeatedly come across people who are confused about different parts of that, and I appreciate the opportunity to set that straight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think we're all concerned here as we've seen the rollout of this Project 20.
We're so off course here.
On the lookout for things we're seeing. If we ever have specific threat information, then we work to get it to the right people. We have election crime coordinators, which we've had for decades in all 56 field offices who have existing relationship with not just state and local law enforcement, but election officials, especially focused on security and threat-related issues. And then, of course, we're participating in the Election Threats Task Force that DOJ set up, which is focused on threats of violence or actual violence against election workers specifically. And we've had a number of arrests and even some convictions already on that.
Thank you for your input. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back, Director. It's my intention to go approximately another half an hour. Then we'll break for the Prime Minister of Israel's address to the Congress on the floor, give you a chance for lunch, and then resume after that. But we'll keep pushing through for the next half hour if we can. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Wray. I think you have a little bit better tone in conversation, so I appreciate it, and answer some questions, so I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll answer also 2 letters that I sent you over a year ago one related to Durham report, and the other one
Who
related
is
to Russian-infiltrated SBU that collaborated with FBI. So hopefully we'll get these answers, and hopefully we'll get
Somebody write down a note about a psychic vision I just had because I need to address.
authorization. Don't you think doing authorization would help us to get better answers? Congress should probably work in authorizing your agency. Don't you agree with that?
We worked very hard to try to get information to this committee and to other committees.
But authorizing spending probably would be a good thing for us to do. Don't you agree?
Oh, I'm sorry, authorizing what?
Our spending, not just doing appropriating, but actually doing authorization of spending through this committee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We might start doing that. But we can talk about, and a lot of my colleagues on the other side, AR-15 gets a lot of bad rap, like to bring it up, this issue. But really, there are a lot of hunting rifles that probably maybe even more accurate than a lot of ARs. And don't you agree? We have like millions, right? Don't you agree? We have millions of rifles owned by law-abiding Americans. So do you think we should be taking them? Millions of rifles from law-abiding Americans? What do you think about that? Would that be something feasible and really we should be doing that?
Well, again, I'm not going to be addressing.
This is really my question, y'all. It's like, I understand it's a dangerous thing and all that, but like, there's like millions of them. There's millions of them all out and about. So literally, unless you're going to make it illegal to have them, then people got to go and just return the property they own. What is the solution? Like, if we could even get to something specific, I would love to talk about this gun reform, whatever. But nobody ever talks about anything specific, and nobody ever talks about anything realistic. So it's like this lady asking, are you going to come and take everyone's hunting rifle? I haven't heard anyone say they're going to come show up at the house and take them. Maybe I missed it.
Anybody's specific legislative proposal. From our perspective, from the FBI's perspective, the concern is any dangerous weapon in the wrong hands.
But all weapons
In the
are
hands of
dangerous.
the wrong person.
But all weapons are dangerous, right?
I'm sorry?
All weapons are dangerous.
Yes.
Knives are dangerous,
Sure.
Explosive are dangerous. There are a lot of
Weapons are by their
Yeah,
very
but are we going to be
definition.
confiscating, hunting rifles and rifles for millions of Americans? Do you think?
She did start it off with a very good point, which is he didn't even have a scope on the thing. And there's hunting rifles that are way more accurate than this at a longer range. So what's really the distinction? I agree with her. I need to know a logical distinction other than a buzzword, and a dog whistle buzzword.
Feasible to do something like that from law-abiding citizens?
It's not something I'm advocating.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. So we have to go back. That was a catastrophic failure of security. That what's happened.
Agreed.
Recently was attempted assassination. Don't you agree with that?
Well, I think former Director Cheadle has already publicly acknowledged that it was, I think her words were, a significant operational failure.
Yeah. Then we had, similar situation.
Colossal.
Different, talking about bad optics. Speaker Pelosi at that time didn't want to have bad optics on January 6th, and we didn't have proper security here on January 6th. That was a catastrophic failure too. Are we looking at that? Any one conclusion was made from that? Have we made any adjustments? Because I know a lot of people, got hurt now just being here. It was a lot of cases brought in our Department of Justice, and a lot of them were really just law-abiding Americans that really just upset with the government, and they have a reason to do it. So I think we need to think about it before we prosecute, or instead of actually, looking how we can deal with real criminals and how we can have a proper security when we have events with so many people there. So did you have confidential human sources? I think you never answered that question on January 6th in the Capitol. Did you have some?
I'm sorry, what's
Confidential human sources. Did you have them on January 6th in the Capitol?
Well, again, I'm
I don't know.
getting into what
I don't know exactly.
have.
I don't know exactly what a confidential human source is, but she's asking about January 6th. I haven't done a ton of research on January 6th. I'm not qualified to speak competently.
Have not used confidential human sources. But
Are you willing to stand the record that you had no confidential human sources that went into Capitol on January 6th?
as I've said consistently, I'm not going to get into where we have or have not used confidential human sources. I can tell you that if you are asking, if
I got to look that up.
at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources or agents? The answer is no.
No, I didn't
It's a
ask you
disservice.
that.
Wait a
So
second.
did you investigate if you? And
What's got his panties all in a wad? All of a sudden, what we 2 hours, 55 minutes into this, he wants to start sassing back? Okay.
confidential human sources, did you do any investigation and looking at that? So you're not answering if you had any or not. So if you had potentially, did you do anything you needed to make sure to investigate that none of your sources did anything wrong? If they did wrong, they were prosecuted the same way. Like
I'm telling you, my psychic vision body language analysis is telling me he's heated about this question for some reason.
To prosecute a lot of people that really, even in Supreme Court rule recently that some unconstitutional charges.
Let me just add that there have now been, I think, 180 individuals who've gone to trial, in addition to the 850 who pled guilty.
Right, but I think the problem is you put these charges, a lot of people would feel guilty. But let me say just quickly, because I only have 10 seconds, really. So I hope you will take seriously what you're doing. You know, related to the border security is also a crisis. You know, your vice president was a lead-in on that. Has she initiated meetings with you to lead, like weekly or monthly meeting where she actually get briefings from you as a leading border czar that had that function? Have you had that? Has she initiated any meetings on a regular basis with you?
Again, gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman can respond.
Right. I on this issue of confidential human sources, number one, I will say there is a DOJ OIG review that's underway that I think addresses some of these kinds of topics.
This is a great point. Kiki said, shocking that a woman from Ukraine cares more about U.S. national security than half of the Dems. And I would say half of all of them. Most of these people are sitting in these chairs because they only care about their own damn self. That's most of these people, every side. That being said, some of the most patriotic people that I know, some of the people that actually truly love this country and the rights that it really stands for, were not born here because they understand, having come from another place, how sacred it really is. And they do not take it for granted. Some, there's exceptions everywhere.
Speak for the Inspector General. Second, as to this suggestion, which I've heard all too many times, that somehow January 6th was orchestrated by FBI agents or sources, I will note that in addition to my prior comments, that there have now been 850-ish individuals who've pled guilty, another 180 who've gone to trial. They've all had access to defense counsel, discovery, all the things the Constitution and the rules provide them. It's been in front of something like 15 different judges, I think dozens of juries. And not one has given credence to this notion. And in fact, I don't think any of them have even really seriously tried.
So it kind of appears, from what I'm gathering here, she's a little bit accusing, like, did the FBI participate in this somehow?
So it's not just my word for it. Look what's happening in the cases. Thank you.
Gentleman from Colorado, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Wray, for being here, for your testimony today, for the work that you do each and every day, and that your frontline agents across the country do each and every day to protect Americans, to keep our country safe. Also grateful for the work that you're doing in investigating the horrific events of July 13th and the attempted assassination of former President Trump, which everyone must and has condemned. I would first just ask, do you believe that the FBI has the adequate resources to ultimately ensure that your agency gets to the bottom of it and fully investigates this terrible crime?
Well, we are devoting massive amounts of resources to this specific investigation. We have easily several hundred FBI agents, analysts, and professional staff working on it. It involves over half of the FBI's 56 field offices, almost every headquarters division. We even have some of our overseas offices working on it. You might say, well, why is that?
Yeah.
Because some of the companies that involve accounts or purchases or communications or what have you that the shooter used are foreign companies. So we have to get evidence from overseas from those companies. I've talked about our lab a little bit earlier today. We've got our Office of Technology Division working on the digital devices. We have our Behavioral Analysis Unit, our BAU, working on helping us build out a profile of the shooter. I could go on and on and on. So it's all hands on deck on this case, as I think is appropriate. Now, when you ask about our resources, I've been public about the fact that the fiscal year 24 budget put us $500 million below where we needed to be to sustain current operations. And on FY25, the current House mark would put us significantly further back behind that and would result in significant.
Is Romania a Balkan country? If so, I also know people from there and love them, and they love the United States and they love freedom.
Across every program and our support to state and local law enforcement. We arrested something like 50 violent criminals per day, every day last year. The current mark would mean more violent criminals on the street, more neighborhoods at risk. We have about a 1,300% increase in our investigations.
Seriously, can we get some crooks information?
Of us. And I can assure you, China's not cutting its budget. This would mean more threats from China. We have something like 300 to 400 investigations just into cartel leadership. And about hardly a week goes by when some FBI field office isn't seizing enough fentanyl to wipe out an entire state. Those cuts means more fentanyl on the street, more people dying.
If we don't give the FBI $500 million, there's going to be more fentanyl in the streets, but there's already enough to kill. I don't know how many. The rich people don't know what the fentanyl's doing yet, y'all. But I know us working class people, we've seen it for years what it's doing. And it's a thing, in my opinion, starts with a G. I'll tell you on my Psychic Vision channel.
People who suffer the most are state and local law enforcement and the American people we're sworn to protect. And so
Let me
look
just
forward
say,
to working with Congress, but we really need to be smart about what we're doing. And I think that would be a step in the wrong direction given the threat environment that we face.
and I couldn't agree with you more, Director Wray. And of course, we've talked about this during previous hearings in which you've testified. And to be clear, that I think the budget that House Republicans have proposed, which is about a $325 million cut to the FBI, would do precisely what you described and have deleterious impacts for public safety.
Don't they? Don't they, Hill has eyes?
Working to prevent those cuts in place.
Because from where I'm looking at it, a lot of them do wear the pins that say who's paying them.
You've talked at great length about the events of July 13. There's justifiably a lot of public interest in the investigation, which we understand is ongoing. Wonder if there's anything that you'd like to disclose or provide to the committee or to the public that perhaps has not yet been gleaned during the course of this hearing, and just give you an opportunity, because there's a lot of folks related to the investigation.
One thing I can give an update on.
That's the thing too. Him saying, "Oh, we need $500 million more for the fentanyl." Well, what about when you had the $500 million? Because you just said that it was a budget cut. So when you had $500 million, y'all still let it just rush through. I mean, probably if I had to do a Psychic Vision, FBI was like complicit in flooding our communities, our streets with this bullshit. And so until I see evidence otherwise, I'm gonna say that's what I think in my Psychic Vision.
Pretty fresh here. We had some conversations with some of the members about the access to the roof and the ladder and so forth. And our evidence response teams and their forensic collection, we now believe that the subject climbed onto the roof using some mechanical equipment on the ground and vertical piping on the side of the AGR building. In other words, we do not believe he used a ladder to get up.
Who cares? He was on the roof.
One question, if the chairman might indulge me with just a few extra seconds. There's an article recently regarding several former Trump administration national security officials who had received a duty to warn briefing from the FBI regarding the potential threat from Iran. And I think there is this article made clear deep concern that these individuals have. Just
most recovery houses are glorified intelligence operations. I'm not talking about from the CIA. I'm just talking about like compromising people in order to get them back in your little stupid sober home or whatever thing you're running. Now, that's not everybody. I know a lot of y'all have been helped by that stuff, but have opinions. And it's the one reason that I really can't get on board with RFK, because he wants to put people in camps.
Sadly so, about the threat level, and particularly given the events of the last several months.
Junior.
And the need for there to be an increased security posture and security personnel for former officials who may very well still be at risk. And I don't know if you're familiar with that article. I'm trying not to use names here, but I think would perhaps follow up with your agency and with the Department of Justice more broadly to ensure that any individuals who are potentially facing a threat from Iran or another hostile actor or foreign nation have the resources they
Yes,
need.
y'all need to look up what RFK's thoughts are on rehabilitation programs. It's a very big part of his platform. And he says a lot of stuff I agree with, but it's one of my biggest issues is people that are experience addiction, whatever, however you want to word it, they should be allowed to pick their own way. They shouldn't be forced into doing something. They shouldn't be forced intervention. Go look it up.
Security available to them.
So again, without reference to any specific individual, I want to be very clear about this because I've tried to be vocal on this, but it sometimes doesn't get noticed as much. Which is that in my view, the Iranian government has been
He wants to be noticed.
aggressive and brazen. We have seen in the last few years an attempt, I'm speaking just from public information now, an attempt to assassinate a former U.S. National Security Advisor on U.S. soil.
Am I sure it's camps? I don't think he would call it that, but go look it up and you tell me.
We have seen an attempt first to kidnap and then to try to murder an American dissident / journalist who's a critic of the Iranian regime, right smack in the middle of New York City.
I'm
We
so
have
bored.
seen, a cyber attack against children in other parts of the house, etc.
Have you been able to establish that he did go to a range and either
Thank
zero that
you.
weapon in
Actual
or,
question.
you know, at least target shoot that weapon prior to the assassination attempt?
So we do assess that he went to a shooting range the day before, not the only time he went to a shooting range. He was a fairly avid, might be a little strong, but a fairly avid, shooting hobbyist. And so he went to, belonged to different sort of clubs and went to certain ranges and that kind of thing. We do believe, based on what we've seen so far, that he went to a shooting range the day before and that he shot an AR style rifle at that range the day before. I'm not sure we know for sure that it's the weapon that he used, but I think we assess that it probably is.
Have you been able to interview his parents?
Of course.
Yes,
And was there anything that was gained from that interview that would lead you to believe that they certainly were aware of what was going on?
I guess I want to be careful about talking about specific people's interviews, but I would say that his parents were cooperative with us. And as I've said before, and hopefully this gets at your question, we have not identified any accomplices, co-conspirators, or anything along those lines.
So it's the FBI's position right now that he still acted independently.
Again, we're still, I know it seems like a lifetime since July 13th, but we're still early stages, but we have not seen anything so far that would suggest to us that he acted with others.
How does the FBI view not just a Trump rally, but political rallies versus other types of events, from a security perspective?
There's an adult. Thank God. There's an adult so far. so far.
Compared to a college football game or any mass, large crowd type gathering. Because I think that one of the things that's most difficult to really to swallow at this point is that the idea that these Trump rallies have been happening for years and that there could be such a lax approach to the physical security of those fairgrounds that day.
Yeah, it was shocking.
Where does this fall? And then on top of that there were other presidential candidates out there that didn't have full Secret Service protection. RFK Jr. has been the most vocal about it. I was wondering if you could comment on the facilities as well as providing security for presidential candidates.
Well, again, I want to be a little bit careful to stay in my lane because again, security posture and the adequacy of the security posture is really the core expertise and responsibility of agencies like the Secret Service. But certainly it is, I think, fair to say that outdoor events, whether they're political rallies or, as you say, a college football game in an open stadium, a concert, these are places that are often, particularly challenging to secure.
No, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there, sir. It was not challenging for one of y'all lazy asses to get up on that roof. That is not it's not a challenge. There was a 70-year-old man up there 2 days ago. No. It wasn't challenging. Y'all just failed.
Because the range of threats that can face them are higher.
This is given slope roof. This is given the roof was too sloped.
In addition to that, as has been discussed a little bit here already in today's hearing, just threats to public officials, including politicians, is an increasingly pervasive part of today's landscape. And so that adds to the challenge. So you're talking about the combination of individuals who are increasingly targeted for violence, combined with venues that are softer and harder to secure targets, I guess is the way I would answer. But again, those kinds of questions, the adequacy of the security posture, all the resources that were or were not devoted, all that stuff, is my understanding would be very much in scope for the DHS Inspector General investigation and this outside independent panel.
Yield back. Gentleman yields back. Director, I think we're going to be able to get two more members' times of question, then we have to get to the floor for the Prime Minister. Gentleman from Georgia's record.
Okay, so it's two more questions. Then they're going to be get to the Netanyahu thing, I think.
Johnson, and thank you so much, Director Wray, for your transparency and your testimony today. First, I want to say my friend, my mentor, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, was known by many as the voice of reason here in Congress. And she was my friend before I even came to Congress. And in my freshman year, she kind of took me under her wing and she kind of showed me the ropes. And she was a force to be reckoned with. And I can say that she will never, ever be replaced. And she was a trailblazer, and I know that she will sorely be missed here in Congress. Director Wray, I only have one question for you today, but before we get to that point, I'd just like to reiterate today that political violence is never acceptable. Regardless of how different our political values and views are, attempted assassinations are a stain to the very democratic ideals of this nation. We have endured riots on Capitol Hill on January 6th, where a literal noose was erected on Capitol grounds, intended for then Vice President Pence and Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi. Political violence against election workers, that has been expressed today. An attack on Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband. Threats against the FBI agents, as you have expressed, and prosecutors, and threats to the staff who serve the public every single day. Congressman Connolly's staff was targeted and attacked last year. And now we have the attempted assassination of a former president of the United States. All of this within just the last 3 years. This violence simply needs to end. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump was, by the grace of God, a failure. The weapon the 20-year-old man was able to obtain, an AR-15, generally has a shooting range up to 600 yards and shot Mr. Trump.
Here's the thing. She just now gave examples of other stuff like a kidnap and a noose. So we got to outlaw ropes. We got to outlaw wood that you can hang a rope off of. We got to outlaw anything, any van, any car that you could put somebody in to kidnap them. We got to outlaw blindfolds because you could use that to hurt somebody by putting it around them and kidnapping them. It's like, if you want to talk about guns, then you need to give a bunch of examples about that and then talk about it. The argument, it's like when you're building a bridge or a house, you go to a foundation. Her foundation is news, threats, breaking into somebody's house to kidnap. So we need to ban all of that stuff. That's not what we're talking about. You know, and then she turns to gun. It's like, yeah, foundation's weak.
From almost 150 yards away. This weapon has the ability to kill multiple people in seconds. And sadly,
that's true.
Comptoir lost his life because of this man and because of this gun. Mr. Comptoir's family will never be the same. Trust me, I understand that more than anyone else in this room.
I see its list of political attacks, but she ain't saying to outlaw anything else. You could probably incapacitate a bunch of people with an airsoft gun. You could probably incapacitate a bunch of people with a lot of things. So it's not that she's advocating to end political violence. She's advocating specifically that this is a particularly dangerous type of political violence, which it is. It is. I have to agree with that. But yeah, it's like, what about the ladder on side the building? Can we outlaw those? Can we outlaw ladders attached to the side of a building? Because that seems to be. Can we outlaw air conditioners that make it easy to get on roofs? Because the air conditioner and the ladder made it pretty easy for him to hurt a bunch of people in seconds as well. But we only going to talk about the one thing. And that's because it's easy to point a finger. But I guarantee you, once they actually are successful in outlawing these things, there will still be mass casualty events. I guarantee you.
Of a former president, enough for this Congress to finally take action, because there are 206 of us that are already standing in the wings, ready to take immediate action to ban assault weapons today. We need only 12 more of our colleagues to join us in courage and move the legislation to save lives of so many of the people that we are elected to serve by removing assault weapons from the hands of people who simply should not have them in their possession.
And what's the definition too of it? Because I mean, maybe there is one. What's assault weapon versus something else?
We are crippling our democracy and we are ripping apart our fellow Americans until we do. I ask today, because it is clearly it wasn't enough to take action when.
But a baby didn't die though, Jenna. No baby died. It was a grown man. So that don't really add up here.
Lethality of assault weapons. We lost 26 and 7-year-olds and 6 teachers in 2012 when I also lost my son to gun violence. Or 14 teenagers and 3 more teachers in 2018, nor was it enough when we lost 19 more children and 2 more teachers in 2022. Well, is it enough now? Now that a former president, the very president of many of you in this room are hoping will be reelected, almost lost his life because this Congress has failed to reinstate an assault weapons ban. A ban that, by the way, Republicans joined with Democrats the past 30 years.
I agree with this. If they get in, if a lunatic gets a hold of one, it's bad.
Weapons ban, we can bring another bill that I have introduced to a vote, the Go Safe Act. This bill focuses on the components of the semi-automatic firearms and regulates their infrastructure, sale, and transfer. This, again, is not the time for thoughts and prayers. This is a time for action. Director Wray, just one question I have for you.
She had one question. She used the rest of her 5 minutes for that.
Would you rather have your officers protected or protect someone against an assault weapon being shot from 147 yards away, or a standard pistol with no accessories attached?
Well, again, I'm going to refrain from appearing to comment on specific legislative proposals, but I can tell you that we are certainly concerned about the danger to law enforcement from any kind of high-powered weapon in the.
I find it interesting, and this is why I have this stance. I find it interesting. He's saying there's a danger to law enforcement from high-powered weapons, but he's not saying that it's the danger is also on we the people, because this law enforcement that he's so worried about protecting also fires their weapons up on us. So he ain't worried about us. He ain't worried about we the people. It took him 3 hours, 19 minutes to come out and let us know.
Hands, and it hits close to home for us. Because just not that long ago, two great agents, Laura Schwarzenberger and Dan Alphen, down in Miami, executing a search and were shot and killed by a subject.
And it's their friends making them. Like they're government contractors. Most lucrative contracts are military weapons manufacturers. So miss me with this shit. Like stop using my tax money to buy that shit and go use it against not only us on our domestically, but children, women, innocent men, people that ain't bothering nobody, ain't doing nothing wrong. They're using our tax dollars to go all over the world and kill people with these weapons, these monumentally lucrative government contracts. Yep, it's true. I'm going there. I'm sorry, I'm going there. So they can use our tax money to do that. But then they want to tell us what we can do. Okay.
Again, dangerous weapons in the wrong hands is something that, of course, from a law enforcement perspective concerns us. But I'm not going to wade into the legislative process.
Well, thank you for that answer. I'd rather give our agents a fighting chance. And I yield back.
Gentle lady yields back, gentleman for Oregon's right.
I'd rather give people running for president a fighting chance to leave a rally with their life. But you don't seem worried about that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Wray, for being here today. So we spend $3 billion a year, excuse me, on the Secret Service, $3 billion. And it would seem that
I underestimated by 100% or 50. 50. I thought it was like it's 1.6 billion. He said 3 billion. Secret Service, 3 billion. And they couldn't get somebody's lazy ass up on a roof. Please.
It should have had a better job done a few weeks ago on the 13th than what we saw. Will you have anything to say
Ban
about
McDonald's.
correcting what are the obvious deficiencies in what the Secret Service did?
Well, for the most part, the deficiencies or adequacy or inadequacy of Secret Service's performance, decision-making, resources, all that stuff is in the purview of those two other investigations. That is the DHS Inspector General and the outside independent panel that's been announced. Having said that, our investigation, which, as I've testified now, involves several hundred FBI employees and every asset we can bring to bear of the shooter. Again, our investigations of
this is where I am.
Attack, of course, involves interviewing law enforcement, including lots and lots and lots of Secret Service people. So we'll share all that with those reviews so that they can answer those questions.
The reason I'm asking this is because this isn't the first time the Secret Service has been before Congress. There was a 435-page report.
See, for me, if the roof had been secured, if there was no ladder, if the Secret Service had some type of either drone or someone on the water tower that could see the whole thing, if there was, if they had done everything they were actually supposed to do, and then it was like, and then he had this gun, it was hidden in his pocket, and he let loose on the crowd, and people, that I would be willing to have that conversation. But here it's like, can we get the people to follow the rules that are already in place before we start talking about new rules? That's always been my issue. They don't follow the rules already in place. So what's to stop anybody from breaking the next rule down the street? I'm not even in disagreement with saying we should consider some of this stuff, but it's like, why is it the case that we're not talking about why was there a ladder? Why was there a this, that, and the other? This man already told you many times that he only is here to speak on the shooting itself. So why are we talking about all this other shit? Oh my God, please.
In 2015 by Congress saying, fix yourself. They didn't. In fact, there was a follow-up in 2019 where they had only done a few of the, I think it was 18 or 19 different specific things they were supposed to do. They'd done some, but certainly not all. There was another follow-up in 2022. And again, the Secret Service had not done what Congress had asked. I guess my question to you.
Well, to be fair, Jenna, I haven't seen the ear, and if I had to guess, the ear probably is not much left. If I had to guess, that ear's fucked up. If I had to guess.
Is what should Congress do? A 435-page report 9 years ago, and still the Secret Service didn't do what it was told to do then. Can you help, Director Wray? Because this type of performance is not acceptable.
No, it's not.
Well, I think even former Director Cheadle has acknowledged this was a significant operational failure. If there are ways for the FBI to be helpful,
She said it was colossal.
what we're already doing in terms of our investigation, we stand ready to try to be helpful. I do want to say, as somebody who's been in law enforcement for most of my career, I've worked with some just phenomenal Secret Service agents.
I'm
all the way back to my time as a line prosecutor, and they have an incredibly hard job. And I have a lot of affection and respect for the men and women of the Secret Service.
I'm sure you do, and I'm sure you're right. But the trouble is when Congress says you need to do these 19 things and they don't, something needs to change. Now, the director has resigned, but you're going to be in a position, because your agency is doing such a careful review, to say a lot about what should have been done. I guess the real issue is much more of what the higher ups in that agency are or are not doing. Perhaps that's on us.
And we will share with those reviews anything that we come across that could be helpful or relevant to them for those questions.
Let me quickly go to some details on the actual events. It appeared to a lot of us, as the Secret Service was taking former President Trump on the stage, that he was clearly still in view of everybody. Had there been another shooter, I didn't see him being protected.
Multiple people saw the man on the roof before the Secret Service did anything.
Are you going to raise that issue?
I think that's really more in scope of these two other reviews.
Let me go
both of them.
Okay, that's fine. Let me go to the shooter as he was on top of the roof. Apparently another officer from another police division saw him and quickly ducked down because the shooter aimed a gun at him. And then the shooter, apparently, was he prone at the time he took the shot toward the president?
So my understanding is that the local officer who that we're talking about, with the assistance of another local officer, was able to kind of get up and see onto the roof where he observed the shooter, I believe, in a prone shooting position. The shooter then turned and faced him, the local officer, with the weapon.
From the prone position.
That's my understanding.
And then he went back to the prone position.
And then this is all seconds before the shooter took his.
But that entire time, the shooter was in the scope sight of the counter sniper, correct?
That one I'd have to double check on. I know we've interviewed the counter sniper, but I'm not sure I know the
The counter sniper didn't take a shot until after the assassin attempted to shoot the former president and others. He got off 8 shots before the counter sniper shot the shooter. What's with that protocol? Can you get that fixed?
Well, I really want to be careful not to be, given the scope of our investigation, somehow second guessing the very difficult act and decision it takes for a counter sniper to kill another human being in that situation. It's all happening in seconds. So
8 shots.
Yeah.
And that was after he'd been seen for 20 minutes. I yield back. Thank you.
Director, that's an important question though, because you've talked to the counter sniper.
Gary.
And that, I mentioned this in our opening statement, that critical 5 minutes.
Was that his name? Gary? What was that? It's in the body cam footage from last night.
609 to 614, and what takes place there is critical. And I think that's what the gentleman was getting at. And we were hopeful that you could tell us something about your interview with the counter sniper.
yeah, I guess I want to distinguish a couple things. There is some individual, not law enforcement, I believe, who spotted the shooter on the roof a few minutes before.
Greg.
I think law enforcement spotting him with the weapon on the roof is seconds before the shot.
Okay, so that's important.
Yeah.
That's also what Kimberly Cheadle said. From the time that he was actually identified as a threat, it was only seconds until he pulled the trigger.
Different things.
I think what you're saying is it wasn't maybe that if the bad guy shoots at 6:11, then you're saying this encounter with local law enforcement that Mr. Benson was just getting into happened just seconds before that and maybe not 2 minutes before that?
That's my understanding. That, in other words, that there's
He don't know what he's talking about.
things here. There's an individual, at least one individual I can think of, not law enforcement, member of the public, who observed him on the roof. Not clear whether or not the individual saw a weapon or not, but saw him in a way that was concerning. That is some number of, not many, but like just a handful of minutes. I think separate from that, as far as law enforcement goes, in terms of a weapon, this local officer that we just talked about observed the individual, again, literally just seconds before the shooter took his shots. Separate and apart from all of that, roughly, I think, maybe a little less than or around an hour before the shooting, there were local law enforcement officers who observed the shooter, not up on the roof, not with a weapon,
right,
but with I believe, a rangefinder, kind of like you would use if you were playing golf or something, in a way that was odd and suspicious. So that started happening with local law enforcement beforehand. But in terms of shooter, meaning with the weapon, law enforcement, my understanding is that the first time that happened was this local officer climbing up on the roof seconds before.
Again, we want that timeline. I think the committee wants that timeline and communications that were taking place in that short period of time.
Again, as I've said with everything else, I really want to be careful. I'm leaning in, trying to share as much as I can here. Facts are evolving, things may change, but we are working on a timeline, among other things.
Committee will stand in recess until after the Prime Minister's remarks conclude.
All right. Woo. Well, that was almost a complete waste of my time. What did I learn here? Very short list. There was 2 BOMB S in his so-called alleged vehicle, which I have my doubts about if that was his vehicle. If it was, I think he might have had an accomplice, but I don't really know. I wasn't there. Also, there was 1 explosive type of device, starting with a B, in his home. So that's one thing I learned today, that they found 2 in the vehicle, 1 in the home. That has been, I think already said, so I don't think that was new. We also learned on July 6th, according to the FBI director, Thomas Crooks became focused on Trump. He became focused on Trump and the rally. He performed, we learned exclusively in this hearing from the FBI director that, Lord, I'm bored. That Thomas Crooks had done a laptop search on July 6th. So like a week or so before the rally. How far away was Oswald from Kennedy? That's the shooter, the person alleged to have shot JFK, John F. Kennedy. Now, the same day that he made that search, how far away was the guy from, the shooter from Kennedy? Same day he made that search is the same day, according to the FBI director, that Thomas Crooks registered for the rally. So the same day he registered for the rally, about a week before, July 6th, was the same day he searched how far away was Oswald from Kennedy. That was probably the most important thing that I heard in how long with 3.5 hours. That's it. That's it. That's what I wrote down. Oh Lord, I don't know if he had a funeral or not yet. I think I'm going to let this other hearing go on, and I may come back for the part 2 of it. Leave it in the comments. Leave it, and I got some psychic messages also. Leave it in the comments if y'all want me to come back and finish this. I mean, so far, it's kind of been a nothing burger, but I guess I could come back and finish it. In any event, I'm gonna take a break and let them go do this other thing, and then maybe I'll be back later. Maybe I'll be back with this. Or maybe I will be back with reading more of my timeline. Who knows? Maybe I won't be back. Y'all let me know in the comments. That's all I really had for right now. In the meantime, facts and defamation. Love you, goodbye.